Give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
It's got this funny aspect, hasn't it? That calling Nelson queer is funny, but it isn't. In a way, it's not funny at all. It's just part of a very large project to not only pretend that trans people started the gay rights movement and that everybody has a gender identity. But I don't know if you know, the University of Leicester has got this wonderful organisation, the Research Centre for Museums and Galleries, which also links up with NEMO. This is a European-wide organisation, and they hold events about queering the museums. So the museums are being fed this bonkers nonsense, yes, by organisations that we're funding, and I think this has to stop. It really has to stop.
Bev, Michelle here. Sorry to cut in and take this back to basics, but some of my viewers might be sitting there and they're not down with the latest iterations of the alphabet soup, so they might not actually even know what is queer.
Well, it's a good question, isn't it? Queer used to be, and in my mind still is, an insult. A lot of gay men, especially older gay men, remember being called queer just before they were beaten up. So for them, and for many people, and including for me as well, queer is an insult. But lots of young gays and lesbians have adopted the word queer these days, but funnily enough, lots of straight people have too. So you'll find straight couples calling themselves queer because they think their sex is a bit edgy or something. It's completely debased the whole notion of what it was, of what gay rights was about, and people have forgotten what gay rights were about. So I don't use the word queer at all. I don't use the word LGBTQ+, because it's a jumble of different interests which actually conflict with each other. They don't belong together.
The People's Channel.
Good afternoon, it is 3 o'clock and welcome to Martin Daubney Show on GB News with me, Nana Aquia. We are broadcasting live across the United Kingdom with the very latest news, debate, analysis until 6. And here's what's coming up on today's show. Breaking news. Asylum seeker Deng Mayek has been found guilty of murdering Rhiannon White, who worked at the hotel where he stayed. He stabbed her to death 23 times with a screwdriver. Humiliation for Labour after suffering a by-election disaster in a part of Wales that has been red for a century.
Listen now, Cardiff, and listen, Westminster. This is Caerphilly and Wales telling you we want a better deal for every corner of Wales.
Plaid Cymru romped home whilst Reform secured an extraordinary surge in second. But how can Nigel Farage's party turn poll leads into actual wins? Labour Minister Nick Thomond-Simmons says that he's disappointed but takes the result with humility.
We've got to redouble those efforts. People need to feel that change in their everyday lives, and that's exactly what we're focused on doing.
And GB News' Christopher Hope was brutally snubbed by Plaid Cymru's winning candidate.
You must be delighted.
Very, very.
It's a shame your aide here won't let you speak to us.
Look, we are in a rush now. If you didn't mind.
I'm walking with you.
World leaders unite for the coalition of the willing as they discuss everything from tackling small boat crisis in the Channel to securing peace in Ukraine.
Well, President Zelensky has already been treated to a review of the guards in front of the King at Windsor Castle, but what he really wants are long-range weapons and much more money.
Grooming gang survivors may have to wait until next year for the government's national inquiry to begin as top candidates to be chairman quit.
And survivors both warn about unacceptably long delays to the process, as today the police inspectorate releases a report warning that we risk failing children in the most profound way.
But first, to the breaking news this afternoon. Daeng Majek has been found guilty of murdering Rhiannon White in October last year. The Sudanese asylum seeker attacked Rhiannon with a screwdriver on a train platform in Walsall after she had finished work at the hotel where he was staying. Our national reporter Jack Carson looks back at the case, warning this story contains distressing content.
The vicious murder of a young mother waiting for her train home. Her attacker, an asylum seeker who laughed and danced after he stabbed her. Rhiannon White died 3 days later. Daeng Majek, a 19-year-old Sudanese man, had been staying at the Park Inn Hotel where Rhiannon worked, cleaning and serving food. On the 20th of October 2024, CCTV shows Majek staring at Rhiannon when she was handing out snacks. During the trial, a witness told Wolverhampton Crown Court they felt scared and worried he was going to do something that night. They even informed the hotel's security staff they all felt intimidated. After Rhiannon's shift ended at 11 p.m, she walked across the road to the Bescot train station. Unbeknown to her, Majek had waited outside in the car park and started to follow. Wearing what the prosecution described as distinctive clothing, he gradually got closer. He walks up the steps to the station. Seconds later, he attacks Rhiannon on the train platform. She sustained multiple stab wounds and died 3 days later from a brainstem injury. Majek is seen on CCTV leaving the train station. He throws Rhiannon's phone into the river, walks to a shop to buy alcohol and returns to the hotel. As the emergency services arrived, footage recovered by the police shows the Sudanese asylum seeker laughing and dancing to music in the hotel car park. The prosecution told the jury Majek was clearly excited by what he had done. Forensic scientists found Rhiannon's blood on Majek's jacket, trousers, shoes and jewellery. DNA recovered from swabs of his fingernails were also a match for Ms. White. After her death, her family described their loss as catastrophic. Rhiannon White was a mother, an auntie, a sister and a daughter whose life was taken in the most horrific way. Jack Carson, GB News.
Well, let's cross live now to Jack Carson, who is actually at Wolverhampton Crown Court. Jack, a very harrowing story is what happened to Rhiannon. A horrible story, actually. What more can you tell us?
Well, it took the jury just 2 hours and 5 minutes of deliberations to come to a verdict today at Wolverhampton Crown Court. They were sent out after the judge summed up the case to them this morning. You heard there some of the details of this case and just how, as the prosecution put it right at the start of this trial, the vicious attack that Rhiannon suffered on that train station platform simply as she waited for her train home. She'd taken on a 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift, handing out snacks, cleaning, working in that asylum hotel in Walsall opposite the Bescot train station. And Daeng Majek, who is a Sudanese asylum seeker, now he says he is 19. That is something which has been an issue of this trial, and just after the verdict was given there in court, there is a conversation ongoing around the sentencing that we're going to be due to getting hopefully in the next kind of coming weeks, because there is a sense from the prosecution, certainly from the judge, in terms of being able to hand down his sentence. There needs to be more assurances on the age of this asylum seeker, and that stems from when he was in Germany. Now, Majek, giving witness evidence in the trial, told jurors that he had been rejected from his asylum claim in Germany, and that he had a German identity document by the time of August 2023. Now, they recorded his date of birth as the 1st of January 1998, but when he arrived in the UK, he gave his date of birth as the 1st of January 2006. He claimed, giving his witness evidence, that age, which would make him 27, was wrong due to a mistake by Italian officials when he was, quote, saved in the sea by them. He had gone through Libya, he had gone through Italy, he had gone through Germany on his journey to the UK from Sudan, which he told the jury during this trial that he fled due to threats from someone in the Sudanese army, but also because there was a war in Sudan. But we also know that he said he got married at 16 in Sudan, that he had a daughter before he left. He'd been here only since July 2023, when he then 2024, sorry, when he then went on to attack Rhiannon White at that train station, and she sadly died from her injuries just 3 days after that horrific attack. In this trial, and as you saw in that piece there, video evidence recovered by the police seemed to show Majek dancing and laughing in the car park. The prosecution put that as he was clearly excited by what he had done. They called that in their closing statements yesterday utterly callous. And as I was saying, the jury taking just 2 hours and 5 minutes to come to a verdict today. It was a unanimous verdict of guilty of murdering Rhiannon White at the Bescot train station in October last year, and guilty of possessing an offensive weapon, mainly the screwdriver he used to attack her.
Well, Jack Carson, thank you for that report. He's live there in Wolverhampton Crown Court. Well, you know, this is when people say that if somebody comes here illegally with a small dinghy, some people say that's not an illegal migrant. I call it exactly that. I think, personally, they should be detained, as in not able to just leave and wander around, because we don't know who they are. And that is quite straightforward. But let's Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch reacted to the verdict, adding, "We must stop the boats."
Can't believe that such a horrible thing would happen to the mother of a young child. I've got 3 kids myself. My youngest is 6 years old. Losing a mum at that age is absolutely horrific. We have to get people who are criminals, who do not belong here, out of our country. We have to stop the boats. Everything else feeds off that. And stopping the boats requires a proper deterrent. We had the Rwanda plan. Labour scrapped that. They had no plan. They did this silly one-in, one-out deal that has now seen more people coming in, and even the people we send away coming back on small boats. It's not working.
No, nothing's working. But one thing we could do before we stop the boats, because that seems to be taking an age, is perhaps make sure that when people come here illegally by a dinghy, when we don't know who they are, that they're not simply allowed to roam the streets. I'd like to hear your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. It's just coming up to 10 minutes after 3 o'clock. Moving on, humiliation for Sir Keir Starmer today after suffering a by-election disaster in a part of Wales that has been red for a century. Plaid Cymru romped home in the contest for the Caerphilly seat in the Senate, with Reform securing an extraordinary surge to come second that left Labour trailing behind in third as the party's vote nosedived by 35%. So is faith in Labour slipping away? And can Reform UK turn poll leads into actual wins? Swansea Reform UK councillor Francesca O'Brien joins me now. Francesca, is this a disappointing... Good afternoon. Look, is this a disappointing result for Reform UK? There were murmurings that they could actually win this seat.
The polls in the leading few days up to the election, Nana, did have us just ahead of Plaid Cymru. But look, we've made an historic result here. We've literally gone from 0 to 100. So it's an historic realignment of Welsh politics here in Wales. And what a foundation we've now got to build upon heading towards next May's Senedd elections.
Do you think perhaps they could start showing GB News then in the Senedd? Are we still banned?
You are still banned, Nana, so we need to get you back in there. But that just goes to show that we are breaking down those doors now. People are listening, and it's great that GB News are picking up and covering Wales, which has been neglected for so long under the Welsh Labour government. And let's not forget, Nana, Plaid Cymru propped them up in power here since devolution. So unfortunately, those who voted Plaid yesterday, they're propping back Labour in power. So it is only going to be a two-horse race at next May's elections here, and that's between Reform UK and Plaid, and we've shown that we're a really good, strong contender.
And Labour, well, their loss of any sort of support is quite shocking. Was that anticipated?
I think so. I mean, like myself, I'm a local councillor here in Swansea. When you go out knocking doors, even in Swansea and in Caerphilly, where we've been campaigning really hard over the last few weeks, that was the noise on the door was Labour have been decimated, and that goes to show. But what's really interesting, it's been reported here in Wales, or comments on, or even on my social media page, that it's a loss for Reform. Well, no, we didn't hold the seat. It was a Labour-held seat since time began, and look where we've come, you know. So absolutely, it's not a loss for us. It's a massive loss and devastation for Labour, and I think now they've got a grim few months ahead of them. And you know, if you want my opinion, I don't think it's going to turn around in the next 7 months for them at all.
But it's interesting, though, because as we move closer to another general election, and we've got 4 years of this, but as we move closer, so far the Reform in certain councils haven't really done that well. For example, Kent, which is their flagship council, although they would argue all their councils are flagship. Now, that ended up with 4 councillors being suspended. Do you know what I mean? Do you feel that perhaps part of the reason is that people don't really trust that Reform can really create an actual government?
No, I think, you know, you've got new councillors, and, you know, there'll always be a few disagreements. You normally do those behind closed doors and you come up as a united front. So that's no big shock. That is going to happen. And like I say, look where we were going back 2 years ago to the May elections of this year. So that is a natural sort of thing that will happen amongst councillors. But look, I'm the only councillor here in Swansea. I know that there's going to be more following me, and I think we just got to show we've got a proven track record. Like myself, we're going out, working hard for the community and delivering, and that's the message we need to get across. That, you know, you've only got to look at the in-house fighting in Labour and Conservative. You know, we're going down the right path here. We're going to be attacked. Let's not forget, the spotlight is very much on Reform at the moment. They're out to attack us, and we've just got to keep our eye on that goal, and that's to deliver for the people, deliver common sense, and go ahead and win that Senate election next May.
Well, it is quite interesting as well, because, of course, the Conservatives are, well, many would say they're toast, that they don't really have much of a hope because they are the people who got us here in the first place. But what are the main concerns for the people in your region? What are they saying? What do they want? Is it, you know, what are the real concerns of the people in that constituency?
It can be varied. I mean, the first thing people normally see on the doorstep, they want change. What that looks like can depend on the area. But I think people are fed up of being lied to. I think they feel let down. And I think the main thing is the immigration. It's the boats coming in. You know, we were told it was going to stop. Again, people say, oh, well, that's not devolved here in Wales. But look, there's people, if you only got to look at Epping and Essex, look at the problems they are having. I do not want that on our doorsteps here in Wales. We can't afford that, so we must protect that. So immigration, despite it's not devolved, it is a major impact on everything. It's, you know, we've got a blank check, and we don't have that here in Wales. We've got people waiting on the NHS list. Business rates here, for example, are the highest in the UK. So, you know, there's a lot of things that are driving people to Reform, and they want that change, and they believe that Reform are the only party that are going to do it.
All right, well, listen, it's really good to talk to you. Thank you, Francesca O'Brien.
Thank you, Nana.
She's a Swansea Reform UK councillor. Well, Labour MP for Kettering, Rosie Writing, joins me now. Rosie, welcome. So, Rosie, this was it's a pleasure. This was a very a sorry result for the Labour Party, because they were so high up there. They've lost 35, you know, they had such a 35% of the share that they had. They were so, you know, they were the ones who should have won this, looking at the polling in terms of how well they were there initially. Is this a great loss for the party?
There's a disappointing result, and I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat that. I want to thank my Welsh colleagues, especially the candidate Richard Tunnicliffe, for fighting this by-election in what was incredibly difficult circumstances following the tragic death of Hefin David. By-elections are difficult for incumbent governments, and we've seen that throughout history. But also, I know that people want change. I mean, I hear it in my own constituency. It's partly why I got involved in politics politics at such a young age. People want to feel the change in their pockets, in their wallets. They want to see the change in their communities when they look out of their windows. I know people are eager for that. I understand and I sympathise, but I do believe that parties like Reform UK and Plaid, with their quick fixes for things, don't offer proper delivery of the change that this country and Wales and Scotland next year really need. And I do believe that it's this Labour government working with a Welsh government and a Scottish government that is the best chance for people to feel the lives around them be fairer and better.
Well, I mean, this is a historic loss, isn't it? Because Labour held that since 1999 when it was actually created. So what went wrong?
Well, like I said, it's clear that people want change. I hear that in my own constituencies. I think that's from wanting to feel like they have more money at the end of the month, wanting their streets to feel safer, wanting their communities to look better and embody the change. And I don't think they're asking for too much. But what I do think is that change isn't going to come quickly, and the quick fixes that the other parties offer, that's not reality. And through a Labour government delivering on things like making sure that children go to school fed with our free breakfast clubs, getting NHS waiting lists down, putting more police on our streets, is how we get that change across the country. But I know that people aren't feeling it yet, and I share that frustration, but I think it is only through Labour that we will get the change to the country that we deserve.
But the electorate don't feel the same, as it were, and they've had the Westminster seat. Labour held the Westminster seat for over a century. So there's got to be some sort of soul-searching within the party to find out why people have defected. So I hear that people want change and they want those things, but how could Labour have got it so wrong?
I think that when we're canvassing or speaking to people on the doorsteps, or for me, in my constituency, in my inbox, I think it is always important that we listen to what they're saying. We listen to their concerns. It's part of the reason, for example, in my constituency with the Pride in Place funding, that we want to put give power back to local communities to make sure that they can be a part of the decision making into changing what they see around them. But yes, of course, we do need to listen to what we've heard on the doorsteps in Caerphilly and across the country. But I do think it's only with Labour and a Welsh Labour government that we will be able to see that change the country wants.
What about then, if that's the case, why do you feel that your party aren't listening to the people? Because you can go on the doorstep and you can ask them specific things, but then we have Rachel Reeves, your Chancellor, already now on a mission to not tax or take from working people, but she's already half broken a manifesto promise with national insurance, and now there are murmurings on the way that she may well be about to break another pledge, which would be to raise income tax. So what are your thoughts on this? What do you think your Chancellor should be doing?
Well, I think before a budget, there's always a lot of speculation, but we have said that we stand by our manifesto pledges. But what I hear from my constituents, and like I said, part of the reason I wanted to get involved in politics at such a young age, is people want to feel like they have a country and an economy that works for the ordinary person, the person that goes to work, works hard, pays their taxes. They want to see a good community and a country that works for them, and they deserve that. They absolutely deserve that, and I think that's why it is important that we did in the first budget, and that we continue to protect those working people and to make this country fairer.
Does that mean that farmers then? So what about farmers then? So are they not working people? And I suppose that once you die, the inheritance, you're not technically working. But it just seems to me that since Labour have been in power, actually the working people are feeling the biggest burden. So, for example, the VAT rate on private schools, of course, parents work, and that tax will be passed on to parents who have to pay it. It does feel, I mean, do you not get the sense that one of the main reasons why people are turning away from Labour is that they seem to be penny pinching from the hardest working people?
Starting with farmers, because I have farmers in my constituency. Farmers work incredibly hard.
They do.
They contribute so much to our country and a massive part of our national security with food security.
Yes.
I think that farmers have had a really, really difficult time. Brexit wasn't delivered in the way that they were promised it would. So what I think that farmers need, and what I have heard from farmers in my constituency, is a fairer deal so they are actually paid better for the work that they do. But in terms of private schools, the vast majority of children attend state schools. So when I talk about making this country fairer, I am thinking about those children who do attend, say, state schools, and they deserve an education that is going to set them up for a brilliant future. I attended state school within a Labour government, and it's because of that even though I didn't grow up with a lot, I felt like I had the opportunities ahead of me, and I've been able to go on and live a good and happy life. I want that for the ordinary children in my constituency who cannot afford to go to private school.
But that's just because you can't. Yeah, but I just think sometimes it's a little bit backward thinking, because not you, but it's the policies that they're putting forward, because the person who sends their child to a private school pays about £7,500 for a child in state school, even though the child is not going there. And then they on top of that, pay for their own child to go to state school. If you take that away, then what you've done is taken the parent who was paying £7,500 for a child who goes to state school while sending their own child to boarding school, they're now paying for their own child in state school. Listen, and also as for the farmers, I don't think they would probably agree with you that Labour have made things better, especially after Brexit. If that's the problem, then perhaps inheritance tax is not the way to go. But anyway, look, it's really good to talk to you. Thank you very much, Rosie. That's Rosie Whiting. She's Labour MP for Kettering. Right, still to come. Keir Starmer meets with world leaders. On the agenda is everything from the Channel crisis to peace in Ukraine. This is GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. I'm Nana Akua. I'm in for Martin Daubney. This is GB News, 26 minutes after 3 o'clock. Now, world leaders have gathered today in London for the Coalition of the Willing, a meeting designed to intensify international support for Ukraine. Sir Keir Starmer is set to urge allies to increase Ukraine's supply of long-range weapons to strike back at Russia. Now, the Prime Minister is also expected to speak with French President Emmanuel Macron about the surge in Channel crossings. Well, joining me in the studio, GB News' Home and Security Editor, Mark White, to tell us more. So the Coalition of the Willing, this is an inception of Sir Keir Starmer's.
Yes, well, it's been quite the day for President Zelensky so far because before he's even met any of the members of the Coalition of the Willing, he was taken to Windsor Castle, where he was given the honour of inspecting the 1st Battalion Grenadier Guards there, along with His Majesty the King this morning. So that's the third time, actually.
A bit like Trump. Trump did a bit of that, didn't he?
Well, he did indeed, yes. Well, President Zelensky got to do exactly the same. As you can see, they're walking in front of the King, as is protocol, and not some kind of faux pas, as he said, obviously, when President Trump did that the first time around in his first presidency with Queen Elizabeth. Now, this is the third time that President Zelensky has met King Charles this year. That gives you an indication of just how determined the UK government is to cement what is very much a special relationship between the UK government and Ukraine. Sir Keir Starmer wants to show that despite the change in government, Labour under Sir Keir Starmer is full square behind Ukraine, and although clearly he's still having difficulties in persuading Donald Trump, for instance, to give him the long-range missiles that he wants, the Tomahawk missiles, Britain is showing, along with the Coalition of the Willing partners, that they are still on Ukraine's side, very much so.
Of course, Volodymyr Zelensky is talking about a humanitarian disaster in Ukraine, because obviously many people are dying. Has he come for more? What is the new upshot of the Coalition of the Willing now, and who's in it?
Well, listen, President Zelensky's trips wherever in the world are effectively, trips with his hand out. He wants money. He wants weapons to fight that war. Now, the difficulty that President Zelensky and Ukraine and its supporters find themselves in is we're 3.5 years down the road into this war. And while there was a tremendous outpouring of sympathy and support for Ukraine in the first months after Russia invaded, in year one, going into year two, that is slowly but surely dissipating because the UK and so many other countries have their own domestic issues, crippled economies in some cases, where they want to see the billions that are being invested in Ukraine now invested back home. And that's as true with the UK as it is with France, Germany, and so many other nations that want domestic issues prioritised. So it's certainly difficult, I think, for political leaders like Sir Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron to keep President Zelensky front and centre of the mindset of their populations and to try to explain to their populations why it's still important to invest in this man, this country, in their efforts to fight Vladimir Putin.
And briefly, Keir Starmer was also talking to Macron about the problem in the Channel, of course. So we're still seeing the crossings, people being sent back, coming back. it's all a bit ridiculous.
Well, yes, I mean, it is really farcical now, to be honest. You know, this man, for instance, the Iranian national, dubbed the Hokey Cokey man because, you know, he's been back and forth across the channel more times than across Channel Ferry under this one-in, one-out scheme that's nothing of the sort. As we know, it's only ever been 42 out, and one of them is already back. So it's a really difficult issue. This returns deal was seen by this government as something that they could trumpet as being a deterrent. It's not going to be a deterrent with 42. It needs to be thousands that are sent back before it could ever be described as any kind of a deterrent. But the other big issue that I'm sure Sir Keir Starmer will be asking Emmanuel Macron for some clarity on is this issue of the pushback tactic. The French police boats pushing the migrant boats back onto the beach in shallow water. We've been told since April of this year, oh, they're just about to do that. They've cleared it through the government. They're going to do it. Not a bit of it. It's not happening. The French police unions don't want it to happen because they don't think the police are going to be backed by the politicians should it go wrong and there are tragic consequences. And actually, France is in political meltdown at the moment. They've gone through Prime Minister after Prime Minister and various interior ministers. It's the very last priority. And you know, it's a priority for Sir Keir Starmer. It's not a priority for them.
Well, they don't want them anyways. They're glad to see the back of them, I suspect.
Well, that would be the cynical view of it, but I think you might be right.
All right, Mark White, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. That is Mark White, GB News' Home and Security Editor. Right, stay with us. Lots more still to come between now and 4, including Labour Minister Nick Thomas-Symonds says the government is committed to a national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. The surveys are told that they may have to wait until next year for it to begin.
Victims have to be at the heart of this. This is one of the worst scandals in the history of our country.
But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories. A Sudanese asylum seeker has been found guilty of murdering a hotel worker on a railway station platform in Walsall. Deng Chol Majek stabbed Rhiannon White 23 times with a screwdriver on a platform at Bescot Stadium railway station in October last year. She died 3 days later in hospital. A double murderer has been jailed for life with a minimum term of 42 years after killing a couple and dumping their remains in suitcases near Clifton Suspension Bridge. 35-year-old Justin Andres Mosquera killed civil partners Albert Alfonso and Paul Longworth in July last year in their flat in Shepherd's Bush in West London. Sir Keir Starmer and President Zelensky have left Number 10 ahead of the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing in London this afternoon. Sir Keir Starmer will urge allies to increase Ukraine's supply of long-range weapons to strike back at Russia. And Championship side Sheffield Wednesday have reportedly filed for administration. The English Football League had previously charged the club in June with multiple breaches of regulations after they failed to pay players' wages on time. Those are the latest headlines. For now, more in half an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Hello again, very good day to you. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, as we look ahead into the weekend, whilst there will be some sunshine around, we'll also see a few showers for some places and temperatures are dropping as well. That's because what was Storm Benjamin is now to the east of us, but as a result, it's leading to cold Arctic air coming down from the north. And initially, that Arctic air is pushing some rain southwards as we go through this evening and overnight. So particularly eastern parts of Scotland and then later England, seeing some cloudy, wet weather for a time. A bit drier further west, though a scattering of showers pushing through on that brisk northerly wind. Because of the brisk winds, temperatures generally not dropping a huge amount, even though we have colder air pushing its way in. But some parts of Scotland, well, in the sheltered glens, we could see temperatures just about dipping below freezing, and so a touch of frost possible in a few spots. Otherwise, as we go through into tomorrow morning, there will be a fair few showers across northern parts of Scotland coming down. And with that colder air, there's a reasonable chance we're going to see some sleet and snow over any modest higher ground. Also some showers across Northern Ireland. These will just be falling as rain, and similar across western parts of England and Wales. Some showers skirting through. Most other areas, though, starting the day largely dry, and there will be some sunshine as well, albeit across East Anglia, a cloudy, perhaps damp start. Once that rain clears away, though, things turning drier here. Through the middle part of the day, a lot of fine dry weather for many places. It's just in areas exposed to that brisk northerly wind where we're going to continue to see those showers piling through, and with that brisk northerly wind, it's going to feel pretty cold. Temperatures a little bit below average for the time of year and feeling even colder in those strong winds. Little change as we go through into the evening, sticking with showers in areas exposed to that northerly wind. The cloud breaking up a bit further, so more clear skies as we go into Sunday. Sunday starting fine but quite chilly for many of us before some wet and blustery weather pushes through from the northwest later on. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. In Taibach, the M4 westbound is congested towards Landarcy. A collision on Cumbria's M6 southbound between junctions 43 and 42 has closed 2 lanes. Staffordshire faces 1.5-hour M6 southbound delays between junctions 15 and 14. Devon's A38 westbound has lane closures between the M5 and A382. Hampshire's M27 eastbound has 1-hour delays between junctions 8 and 9. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and London North Western Railway services face disruptions between Milton Keynes Central and Northampton or Rugby. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. I'm Nana Akwe in for Martin Daubney. This is GB News. Now, a government source says that it could take until next year for the National Grooming Gangs inquiry to start, whilst they look for a chairman as the top candidate quits. Well, GB News' national reporter Charlie Peters joins me now. Charlie, what more can you tell us?
Well, Nana, this is a moment of crisis for the... They had those 2 chairs ready to be interviewed. One of them actually withdrew before that process started. And then Jim Gamble, he withdrew after being interviewed by 2 sets of panels on Tuesday. But he withdrew amid what he described as a toxic environment with political mudslinging. But perhaps it's no great surprise that that toxic environment has started when you hear about some of the concerns that survivors have had. Well, I'm joined now by Richard Scorer, who's the head of abuse law at Slater & Gordon. And Richard, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. Very keen for your perspective on this, because when we talk about the concerns that survivors had about the widening scope of this inquiry, you had a key role to play in that previous abuse inquiry in ICSA. Just give some context to our audience about why this scope needs to be more precise.
Well, I think ICSA and what went wrong with that inquiry is a really important part of the backdrop here. ICSA was a very wide-ranging inquiry that looked at responses to abuse across a whole range of institutions. It did some very good work in some areas. Unfortunately, the work that it did in relation to grooming gangs, I think, was completely inadequate. It didn't look at the big scandals that we've seen in areas like Oldham and Bradford and so on. And the areas that it did look at, it didn't actually have any meaningful input or evidence from survivors. So that's the backdrop, and it's really important that we don't repeat that mistake. I think that's a really important part of the context here.
And Richard, we're hearing now, obviously there's been letters going in from different survivors about their views, those on the panel, those not on the panel. And there was a letter in The Guardian that they published with some survivors on the panel calling for that expansion of the inquiry, although the letter does note that one of them is not a grooming gang victim specifically. Now, we've also heard from the police watchdog today, the inspectorate, finding that the Home Office isn't using the definition of grooming gangs as recommended by ICSA. So is it really any surprise that they're struggling to launch this inquiry and this investigation when they don't even know how to define grooming gangs?
Well, I mean, I can only speak for the survivors that I represent and that I work with, and certainly grooming gang survivors are very clear, in my experience, that this has to be a very focused inquiry, focused on the sorts of cases that you've been talking about on this programme over the last few months. And that's where the focus has to be, that the clients I represent who've been through these experiences are very much against any broadening out of this inquiry, because that takes us back to what ICSA has already done. So it has to be a very focused inquiry. I completely agree with you that if the Home Office itself is unclear about definitions, then that's not a very good starting point. But, in a sense, this is why we need this proper overarching inquiry to properly address all of these issues. We're now 15, nearly 20 years on from the first cases that, were prosecuted around this, the reporting of Andrew Norfolk and Julie Bindel and people like that. So much has happened, but national responses to it are still completely inadequate.
And Richard, reflecting on the debate going on at the moment and the various concerns that people are sharing, there's also been discussion about who can be the next possible chair. And Sir Keir Starmer said that it was Baroness Casey's view that it shouldn't be a judge. He said it would make it too long, and also it might disrupt police investigations going on at the same time. What's your reaction to that as a lawyer? Do you think that having a judge leading this inquiry would prevent policing investigations?
Well, it's certainly the case that it may be difficult for the inquiry to look at individual cases that are progressing through the criminal justice system. That would be the case, but that has nothing to do with whether the chair is a judge or not. That's an entirely separate issue. It's always been my view, and you may think that I would say this anyway because I'm a lawyer, but it's always been my view that if you're going to have a statutory inquiry like this, and it's going to be able to use its statutory powers effectively, and it's going to operate in a forensic way, then it would be best to have a legal chair. That's always been my view. Now, I think realistically, particularly given issues around judicial capacity at the moment, it may be difficult to recruit a senior judge, but there are other lawyers out there, very experienced lawyers who might be in a position to take on the role. And I certainly think that that needs to be considered properly. But it is going to be difficult to recruit a chair for this. But my personal preference would be that it is a legally qualified chair.
And Richard, what do you think the government needs to do now to regain the trust of victims and survivors in this process? Because we've seen so many calling for the safeguarding minister to resign, some even staying on the panel but still thinking that Jess Phillips should go after she, they said, suggested they were liars for expressing those concerns about a widening scope. What can they do now to regain their trust?
Well, I think regaining trust is crucial. I mean, survivors, people sort of say almost as a cliche that survivors have to be central to this inquiry, but actually they really do. And this inquiry is not going to be successful unless, the wider group of survivors, not simply those on the panel, but the wider group of survivors out there in the country are willing to put their trust in this inquiry and contribute to it. That's going to be crucial. So restoring trust is crucial. I'm not going to express a view about Jess Phillips's position, but I would say that ultimately, if changes to the ministerial team are necessary in order to restore trust, then that may have to happen. But there are other things as well. I mean, this issue of broadening the inquiry, I think, has undermined trust. I'm also really concerned that some of the things that were said in the resignation letters by survivors about the Home Office trying to stage manage this. We had that at the beginning of the last inquiry, and that really didn't go down well, and that was damaging for trust amongst survivors at that stage. In that inquiry, we've got to get away from that. This can't be a stage-managed process. This has got to be properly transparent and open.
Just one last question, Richard. I mean, we revealed last week that survivors had been asked to submit their questions to the potential chairs ahead of time, and that they were also given guidance on what they should ask around themes about inclusivity and dealing with survivors. You think that process should go for future interviews for chairs? There shouldn't be any, as you say, stage management or screening. Survivors should just be allowed to ask questions.
Absolutely. I mean, this is very much the sort of Home Office style to try and stage manage things in this way. It's completely wrong. It doesn't work, and it damages confidence. And compare it. I mean, there's issues with the Oldham inquiry at the moment, but if you look at what the chair who was selected there, Tom Crowther Casey, said about this, he said, there were no scripted questions. Survivors were able to ask him anything they wanted, and that's how it's got to be. And actually, in that situation, Tom Crowther is widely respected and he has the trust of survivors. Obviously, the Oldham inquiry has stalled, perhaps for other reasons, but that's the way it should be done. This stage management absolutely has to go. It's very damaging and it doesn't work.
OK, Richard Scorer, Head of Abuse Law at Slater and Gordon, thank you very much for your time. And Nana, back in Westminster, I have to say, you heard Richard mentioning the Oldham inquiry there. There are lots of concerns in that town as well. That local investigation promised in January, still not delivered in October, and we revealed at the beginning of this month that they were being offered a truth project instead of an inquiry. So many questions for the government on this as it continues to rumble around chaos on this grooming gang's investigation.
All right, Charlie Peters, thank you very much for that. All right, 46 minutes after 3 o'clock, breaking news. A group of criminal mercenaries have been jailed for a Russian-inspired arson attack on Ukraine, linked businesses in London last year. Prosecutors described the attack as a sustained campaign of terrorism and sabotage on UK soil. Well, I'm joined in the studio by GBNews' Home and Security Editor, Mark White, to tell us more. Mark.
Well, we were talking just a short while ago about President Zelensky's visit here and the Ukrainian war with Russia. Well, this is one of the consequences, the fallout from that conflict is the activity that the Russian state is involved in the grey zone, trying to recruit proxies to carry out anything from sabotage to spying to actual harm on individuals. And this particular group of 5 men were hired by the Russian mercenary group, the Wagner group, that acts on behalf of the Russian state, according to the prosecution, to carry out a number of sabotage firebomb attacks, and indeed they carried out one firebomb attack in Leighton in East London in March of last year that caused some very significant damage indeed. Now, the 2 leaders of this plot, Dylan Earle and Jake Reeves, have been jailed. Fairly lengthy jail sentences. It's the first jail sentences under the National Security Act since that was implemented. Dylan Earle, 23 years he's been jailed for. He must serve 17 in prison before he's eligible for release. And Jake Reeves was jailed for 12 years. We got some images, dramatic images, of the moment armed police arrested Dylan Earle. Let's take a look.
Down on the floor! Stay still! Stay still! I've got handcuffs here. Calm down. Over, onto your front. Onto your front now. And behind your back. Vehicle clear! Front's clear! Subject secure! Subject secure.
27 of the National Security Act 2023 allow grounds to believe that you were involved in foreign power threat activity, namely you're assisting a foreign intelligence service. So you didn't have to say anything, but no harm in You do not mention one question, something that you later on in court. Anything you do so may be given evidence. So your arrest is necessary for prompt and effective investigation, prevent disappearance and prevent loss, destruction of evidence.
So that was Dylan Earle there being arrested by armed police, and his lawyer during this trial portrayed him as a bit of a Walter Mitty character, spent a lot of his time in his bedroom, fantasised about being a spy. He'd reached out to the Wagner group through a chatbot on the Telegram encrypted messaging account, got the reply was after he was hired. He and Jake Reeves were also involved in plotting to firebomb a wine shop in the UK and to kidnap the owner of that, a Russian dissident. I spoke a little earlier today to the head of Counter-Terror Command, Dominic Murphy, who told me that actually this practice now by the Russian state in particular of hiring these proxies, disaffected young people, often low-level criminals and alike, is something that's growing. This is what he told me.
Yes, it's quite a common thread now in this activity, and there are several reasons for that. The first is we've created something of a hostile environment for particularly Russia and Iran to operate in the way that they used to here. So much harder for them to, say, send their own agents over here like Salisbury. But, of course, that operating environment means they have to operate differently. And so what they now do is reach out to sometimes young, but there's a mixed profile of individual, and tempt them to conduct activity on their behalf here, so commit crimes, whatever they might be. So we're now seeing all the types of activity you would expect a foreign state to want to do here, right from espionage to operations that are seeking to harm an individual. And they're now all being tasked into individuals that are on the periphery of crime or might be vulnerable or interested in money. So it's a new type of threat, but one we are working very closely with international and intelligence partners on, and as you can see in this case, are successfully disrupting.
So this really, in terms of the kind of activity that Counter-Terror Command are dealing with now, is a growing threat. Just last week I was at a speech by the Director General of MI5, our domestic security service, who pointed to state threats from, in particular, Russia, China and Iran as being a very significant issue that is taking up as much time of the security services and the police as your traditional sort of terrorism activities are. So some real concern about the way Russia in particular, since of course the war began in Ukraine, and the support that the UK has provided to Ukraine has really seen the UK as an active threat to Russia, an enemy, and has gone after the UK, okay, not in direct conflict, but in this indirect conflict. We can show you actually some images, Nana, of the evening itself in March of 2024. This is one of the gang who set fire to this warehouse in Leighton in East London. They've poured petrol, they set it alight there. He's actually filming himself.
What an idiot.
While he does it. Yeah, exactly. Give us some evidence to put before the courts, why don't you?
We have it.
But they were also caught on CCTV as well, banged to rights, because the police had the encrypted messaging conversations that he was having, Dylan Earl was having, with this Russian chatbot on Telegram, you know, about how he was willing to do whatever he needed to do, that he could put the Russians in contact with the IRA, with the criminal underworld, with anybody really that they wanted to speak to. He would provide them. He was a fantasist, but a dangerous fantasist.
Well, in that clip, he just looked like a middle-aged, pot-bellied, sort of ultimate Mitty-type character who's just sort of getting off on being involved in this way, and it's quite very odd, really, to be honest.
But it's very dangerous what they did.
Very dangerous.
£1 million worth of damage to that building, and there were people in the area that could have been hurt.
Wasn't that the same Wagner group that Prigozhin was leading? And
well, this is it. They're called Putin's private army. They do all kinds of activities for the Russian state that are very unsavoury indeed.
All right, well, Mark White, thank you very much. Coming up, we'll return to the breaking news as an asylum seeker has been found guilty of murdering Rhiannon White, who worked at the hotel where he stayed. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. But first, let's get your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, very good day to you. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, as we look ahead into the weekend, whilst there will be some sunshine around, we'll also see a few showers for some places, and temperatures are dropping as well. That's because what was Storm Benjamin is now to the east of us, but as a result, it's leading to cold Arctic air coming down from the north. And initially, that Arctic air is pushing some rain southwards as we go through this evening and overnight. So particularly eastern parts of Scotland and then later England, seeing some cloudy, wet weather for a time. A bit drier further west, though a scattering of showers pushing through on that brisk northerly wind. Because of the brisk winds, temperatures generally not dropping a huge amount, even though we have colder air pushing its way in. But some parts of Scotland, well, in the sheltered glens, we could see temperatures just about dipping below freezing, and so a touch of frost possible in a few spots. Otherwise, as we go through into tomorrow morning, there will be a fair few showers across northern parts of Scotland coming down, and with that colder air, there's a reasonable chance we're going to see some sleet and snow over any modest higher ground. Also some showers across Northern Ireland. These will just be falling as rain, and similar across western parts of England and Wales, some showers skirting through. Most other areas, though, starting the day largely dry, and there will be some sunshine as well, albeit across East Anglia, a cloudy, perhaps damp start. Once that rain clears away, though, things turning dry here. Through the middle part of the day, a lot of fine dry weather for many places. It's just in areas exposed to that brisk northerly wind where we're going to continue to see those showers piling through, and with that brisk northerly wind it's going to feel pretty cold. Temperatures a little bit below average for the time of year and feeling even colder in those strong winds. Little change as we go through into the evening, sticking with showers in areas exposed to that northerly wind. The cloud breaking up a bit further, so more clear skies as we go into Sunday. Sunday starting fine but quite chilly for many of us before some wet and blustery weather pushes through from the northwest later on. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A720 eastbound at Calder Junction is restricted due to a broken down vehicle. Proceed with caution. The M4 westbound from Prince of Wales Bridge to Junction 26 is congested. A traffic collision on the M6 southbound in Staffordshire between junctions 15 and 14 causes delays. The M27 eastbound in Hampshire between junctions 8 and 9 is delayed due to a multiple vehicle incident. Lane closures on the A38 westbound in Devon are causing disruption. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and London North Western Railway report disruptions between Milton Keynes Central and Northampton Rugby. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's the final week to see how you can become our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps 4, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Good afternoon. It is fast approaching 4 o'clock. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on on GB News with me, Nana Akua. We're broadcasting live across the UK with all the very latest news, debate and analysis until 6 o'clock. And here's what's coming up on the show today. Breaking news, asylum seeker Daubney has been found guilty of murdering Rhiannon White, who worked at the hotel where he stayed.
Daubney followed Rhiannon White from the hotel where he was staying, where she worked, to the train station at the Bescott train station, to that train platform, before stabbing her with a screwdriver. In a statement outside court moments ago, her sister Alex called him a sick, twisted and cowardly human.
World leaders unite for the coalition of the willing as they discuss everything from tackling the small boat crisis in the Channel to securing peace in Ukraine. But the Russian threat might not be as far away as it seems, as breaking news that Brits have been sentenced for carrying out arson attacks in the capital for a Kremlin-sanctioned terrorist group.
Well, this gang of low-level criminals caused more than £1 million worth of damage when they firebombed a Ukrainian-linked warehouse in East London. Authorities say that Russia is co-opting a growing number of these proxies.
Humiliation for Labour after suffering a by-election disaster in a part of Wales that has been red for a century.
Listen now, Cardiff, and listen, Westminster. This is Caerphilly and Wales telling you we want a better deal for every corner of Wales.
Plaid Cymru romped home while Reform secured an extraordinary surge in second. But how can Nigel Farage's party turn poll leads into actual wins? Labour Minister Nick Tomlinson says that he's disappointed, but takes the result with humility.
We've got to redouble those efforts. People need to feel that change in their everyday lives, and that's exactly what we're focused on doing.
And GB News' Christopher Hope brutally snubbed by Plaid Cymru's winning candidate.
You must be delighted.
Very, very.
It's a shame your aide here won't let you speak to us.
Look, we are in a rush now. If you didn't mind.
I'm walking with you.
And in what could be yet another sign that the lunatics are in charge of the asylum system, a judge has ruled a Syrian asylum seeker is a 16-year-old child, despite the fact that he has a receding hairline, grey hair all over his head and crow's feet. Grooming gang survivor may have to wait until next year for the government's national inquiry to begin, as top candidates to be chairman quit. Yeah, so it seems like we're living in clown world, because this asylum seeker, we'll bring you all the details on it, Syrian asylum seeker who the immigration system thought was somewhere between 24 and 26, as did the people in the council, in Derby Council. They all thought he was really old as well. However, a judge declared that perhaps because of the hard life he's had and, you know, because of his circumstance and the environment, that's why he has a massive Adam's apple, full grey hair, crow's feet, smokes fags and looks, I would say, nearer 30. I mean, how bad is it? We'll tell you more of that. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments, gbnews.com/your say. But now it's time for your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much. The top stories. A group of criminal mercenaries have been jailed for a Russian-inspired arson attack on Ukraine-linked businesses in London last year. Prosecutors described the attack as a sustained campaign of terrorism and sabotage on UK soil. 21-year-old Dylan Earle admitted aggravated arson over the 2024 blaze, which targeted companies delivering satellite equipment from Elon Musk's Starlink to Ukraine. In other breaking news this afternoon, a Sudanese asylum seeker has been found guilty of murdering a hotel worker on a railway station platform in Walsall. Deng Chalmagic stabbed Rhiannon White 23 times with a screwdriver on a platform at Bescott Stadium railway station in Walsall in October last year. She died 3 days later in hospital. Rhiannon's sister spoke outside court.
Throughout this trial, we have been given no reason as to why he chose Rhiannon, no accountability for his actions, and no remorse. She fought for her life and to save herself from this sick, twisted and cowardly human who showed no regard for Rhiannon or human life.
A double murderer has been jailed for life with a minimum term of 42 years after killing a couple and dumping their remains in suitcases near Clifton Suspension Bridge. 35-year-old Justin Mosquera killed civil partners 62-year-old Albert Alfonso and 71-year-old Paul Longworth in July last year in their flat in Shepherd's Bush in West London. Sentencing him for the murders, Mr Justice Benathan told the defendant Paul Longworth and Albert Alfonso were a settled, affectionate couple. It was their tragedy that you, Justin Mosquera, came into their lives. In other news, Sir Keir Starmer is holding a coalition of the willing meeting currently. Earlier, the Prime Minister welcomed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to Downing Street ahead of the meeting. Sir Keir Starmer will urge allies to increase Ukraine's supply of long-range weapons to strike back at Russia. The Prime Minister says the UK is the closest ally and supporter of Ukraine whilst hosting Volodymyr Zelensky in London. Measures under consideration include further efforts to cripple the economy supporting Vladimir Putin's war effort by taking Russian oil and gas off the global market and seeking ways to use frozen assets to fund Ukraine's defence. The talks come as Vladimir Putin steps up attacks on civilians, including a strike on a nursery full of children this week. Leaders are expected to discuss fresh ways to strengthen Ukraine's defences and further isolate Russia on the global stage. Plaid Cymru claimed a decisive victory in the Caerphilly by-election, defeating Reform UK and pushing Labour into third place. Here's what lifelong Plaid Cymru activist Lindsay Whittle had to say.
Listen now, Cardiff, and listen, Westminster. This is Caerphilly and Wales telling you we want a better deal for every corner of Wales. The big parties need to sit up and take notice. Wales, we are at the dawn of new leadership. We are at the dawn of a new beginning.
Labour, which has held the seat since 1999. Plaid's leader, Rhena Biowath, said the result shows Wales is ready for new leadership. The result is seen as a major boost for Plaid ahead of next year's Senate elections and a serious setback for Labour's dominance in Wales. GB News spoke to Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Matt Vickers, about the impact this has on Labour.
But, I mean, the overwhelming message of this is a complete, resounding hit on Labour. People are completely miffed with what they've seen during the last year, whether it's letting down the pensioners, letting down the farmers, the damage they're doing to our economy, 17% more people out of work, businesses closing at the fastest rate since the world economic crash. This message, by-elections are often an opportunity for people to send a message, and boy, have they sent a message today.
Elsewhere, there's been encouraging progress, but significant challenges remain in how police tackle child sexual exploitation and grooming gangs, according to a watchdog. It comes as yesterday a government source said it could take months to find a chair for the National Grooming Gangs Inquiry. There are no candidates left in the running after former police officer Jim Gamble and Annie Hudson, a former director of Children's Services for Lambeth, both withdrew. A fifth survivor quit the inquiry, citing lack of support, while others have backed Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips to stay in post. Cabinet Office Minister Nick Thomas-Symonds agreed with the Prime Minister and supported Ms Phillips when speaking to GB News earlier today.
Victims have to be at the heart of this. This is one of the worst scandals in the history of our country. Young women and girls being completely exploited, terrible crimes committed against them. I absolutely have confidence in Jess Phillips to do this. Jess Phillips, not just in what she's done standing up for and against violence against women and girls at Westminster, but also what she did working in domestic abuse and supporting women and girls before she came into politics.
In sport, Championship side Sheffield Wednesday have reportedly filed for administration. The English Football League had previously charged the club in June with multiple breaches of regulations after they failed to pay players' wages on time. The club's financial issues under their current owner have been well documented, with reports that a winding upward from HMRC was imminent. Sheffield Wednesday did not make any immediate comment, but they're expected to release a statement in due course. And Bavarian police have seized millions of euros worth of forged art, claiming to show works by Picasso, Rembrandt and Kahlo in an operation spanning Germany, Switzerland and Liechtenstein. Authorities in Bavaria said the main suspect, is a 77-year-old German man who, along with 10 alleged accomplices, is facing charges of conspiracy and fraud. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3352 and €1.1472. The price of gold, £3,080.59 per ounce. The FTSE 100 at 9,580 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon. Back to that breaking news this afternoon. Dem Majek has been found guilty of murdering Rhiannon White in October last year. The Sudanese asylum seeker attacked Rhiannon with a screwdriver on a train platform in Walsall after she had finished work at the hotel where he was staying. Our reporter Jack Carson looks back at the case, a warning that this story contains distressing content.
The vicious murder of a young mother waiting for her train home. Her attacker, an asylum seeker who laughed and danced after he stabbed her. Rhiannon White died 3 days later. Deng Majek, a 19-year-old Sudanese man, had been staying at the Park Inn Hotel where Rhiannon worked, cleaning and serving food. On the 20th of October 2024, CCTV shows Majek staring at Rhiannon when she was handing out snacks. During the trial, a witness told Wolverhampton Crown Court they felt scared and worried he was going to do something that night. They even informed the hotel's security staff they all felt intimidated. After Rhiannon's shift ended at 11 p.m, she walked across the road to the Bescot train station. Unbeknown to her, Majek had waited outside in the car park and started to follow. Wearing what the prosecution described as distinctive clothing, he gradually got closer. He walks up the steps to the station. Seconds later, he attacks Rhiannon on the train platform. She sustained multiple stab wounds and died 3 days later from a brainstem injury. Majek is seen on CCTV leaving the train station. He throws Rhiannon's phone into the river, walks to a shop to buy alcohol and returns to the hotel. As the emergency services arrived, footage recovered by the police shows the Sudanese asylum seeker laughing and dancing to music in the hotel car park. The prosecution told the jury Majek was clearly excited by what he had done. Forensic scientists found Rhiannon's blood on Majek's jacket, trousers, shoes and jewellery. DNA recovered from swabs of his fingernails were also a match for Ms. White. After her death, her family described their loss as catastrophic. Rhiannon White was a mother, an auntie, a sister and a daughter whose life was taken in the most horrific way. Jack Carson, GB News.
Absolutely tragic story. Let's cross to our national reporter, Jack Carson, who's at Wolverhampton Crown Court. Jack, what more can you tell us?
Well, right from the opening of this trial, the prosecution labelled this a vicious attack, and that is what the jury have found Deng Majek of doing, murdering Rhiannon White in October last year, and also guilty of possessing an offensive weapon in the form of the screwdriver that he used to attack her, stabbing her 23 times on the train platform. She'd finished work at 11 o'clock, but CCTV shown throughout this trial, as you just saw there, showed Majek staring at her throughout the final hours of her shift. He'd gone outside and he told the jurors when he gave his witness evidence that he was going out simply for a cigarette, but wearing what the prosecution described as distinctive clothing. Majek could be tracked from his movements inside his hotel room, outside the hotel, then following Rhiannon, and then after the attack leaving the train station, then going to a shop to buy alcohol and returning to the hotel. The police were able to recover footage of him laughing and dancing in the car park when you can see the blue lights, the emergency response in the background attending to Rhiannon, who was found on the train platform moments later after she was attacked by a train guard. That is when emergency services were called. When emergency services went to the hotel, they were able to recover CCTV very quickly. They arrested Majek in his room, and that is where they were able to find and recover the distinctive jacket that he could be seen wearing in that CCTV. sandals, all of this had Rhiannon White's blood on them. His fingernails had Rhiannon White's DNA under them. And closing their case yesterday, the prosecution said that the suggestion that this was anyone other than this defendant, they said, was ridiculous. We heard how Majek had come to the UK as an asylum seeker from originally Sudan in just July last year, months before he went on to attack Rhiannon. There is still a debate around his real age. That is why the sentencing has been postponed until December, because the judge wants assurances on his age before he can sentence him, because of course this is a murder prosecution. He will automatically get a life imprisonment sentence, but the minimum term is something which the likes of age and maturity come into that as a factor. But speaking outside court after that verdict, Rhiannon White's sister Alex gave this statement.
There is no end to the pain or suffering we have had to endure or continue to experience. On that horrific day, our precious Rhiannon was shown no mercy. Throughout this trial, we have been given no reason as to why he chose Rhiannon, no accountability for his actions, and no remorse. She fought for her life and to save herself from this sick, twisted, and cowardly human who showed no regard for Rhiannon or human life. I am raising Rhiannon's son, and I cannot express the unimaginable pain of having to sit down and explain to a 5-year-old child that the one person who loves him more than anything will not be coming home.
You can just hear there, Nana, just how horrific the circumstances which this family, not only had to find out that Rhiannon had been attacked, that she died, of course, 3 days later, surrounded by them in hospital. They talked in that statement outside court about how they prayed for her by her side, hoping that she would make a recovery. But ultimately, it was, as I quoted the prosecution saying, the vicious nature of this attack, which meant it was unrecoverable for Rhiannon. There was a damage to her skull from those injuries, damage to her brainstem. That was ultimately what caused her death. Just to give you some more reaction from the British Transport Police, the senior investigating officer, Detective Chief Inspector Paul Atwell, called this a brutal, cowardly and unprovoked attack on a vibrant and selfless young woman who had her whole life ahead of her.
Jack Carson, thank you very much. He's our national reporter at Wolverhampton Crown Court. Seriously, I despair. Why are we importing these people? Why are these people allowed to just come to this country and then roam the streets freely? We don't know who they are. We don't know what their backstory is. We don't know what their background is. They should be detained. I mean, what do you think? gbnews.com/you'll say. It's utter madness. Utter madness. But yet to more breaking news this afternoon. A group of Wagner Group stooges have been jailed for a Russian-inspired arson attack on Ukraine-linked businesses in London last year. And this is while world leaders, including President Zelensky, have gathered today in London for a coalition of the willing. Well, joining me in the studio, GB News' Home and Security Editor, Mark White. So they're doing a little get-together again.
Yes, they are. They are obviously the coalition of the willing, that is, trying to show that they've got full support for President Zelensky in his efforts to continue to resist Russia's invasion. But really what we're witnessing today in terms of the sentencing of this gang of low-level criminals co-opted by the Russian state are the real-world consequences of a war that might be thousands of miles away, but absolutely is being felt on the doorstep, both, of course, economically in terms of the billions of pounds this country gives to Ukraine, but also because Russia sees the UK now as an enemy state. And it's been conducting this grey war activity for some time. Now, this particular firebombing that was carried out, we're told on behalf of the Russian state, was in Leighton in East London, where a group of men, 5 men in total, that were involved in this activity hired by the Russian state mercenary group, the Wagner Group, to go and firebomb this factory in Leighton. I think we've got some images we can show you of the point where 2 of the men set fire to that industrial estate warehouse that was supplying items for the Ukrainian war effort. And that fire really took hold and caused very significant damage, £1.3 million worth of damage. It took 60 firefighters some considerable time to bring under control. And there were people nearby that potentially could have been hurt by this. Well, one of the gang's ringleaders, the leading figure in the gang, is Dylan Earl, 21-year-old low-level criminal from Leicestershire, who had reached out to the Wagner Group. We can show you images of the point where he was arrested by armed police. Very dramatic. It's at the beginning. There's a few seconds where it's mute because the police have got to engage the camera sound, but then you hear the dramatic nature of that arrest. Let's take a look.
Down on the floor! Stay still! Stay still! I've got handcuffs here. Calm down. Over. Onto your front. Onto your front now. And behind your back. Vehicle clear! Front's clear! Subject secure! Subject secure.
Section 27 of the National Security Act 2023 allows grounds to believe that you are involved in foreign power threat activity, namely you're assisting a foreign intelligence service. So you didn't have to say anything, but no harm in.
And so this very dramatic arrest of this individual, who the defence tried to portray as a bit of a sad loner, a Walter Mitty character who spent most of his time, Nana, in his bedroom trying to dream of being a spy or a saboteur on behalf of the Russian state. He'd reached out to this mercenary group, the Wagner Group, on the Telegram encrypted message account, chatted to a bot there initially, and then was co-opted, apparently, and sent on various missions. He was also, before he was arrested, planning to carry out a firebomb attack in a wine shop in London and to kidnap the wealthy owner of that business, who was a Russian dissident. This type of activity, these low-level, antisocial individuals that are being co-opted, hired by the Russian state and as proxies, is increasing, according to the head of counter-terror command in London, Dominic Murphy, Commander Dominic Murphy, who spoke to me a little earlier.
Yes, it's quite a common thread now in this activity, and there are several reasons for that. The first is we've created something of a hostile environment for particularly Russia and Iran to operate in the way that they used to here. So much harder for them to, say, send their own agents over here like Salisbury. But of course that operating environment means they have to operate differently. And so what they now do is reach out to sometimes young, but there's a mixed profile of individual, and tempt them to conduct activity on their behalf here, so commit crimes, whatever they might be. So we're now seeing all the types of activity you would expect a foreign state to want to do here, right from espionage to operations that are seeking to harm an individual. And they're now all being tasked into individuals that are on the periphery of crime or might be vulnerable or interested in money. So it's a new type of threat, but one we are working very closely with international intelligence partners on, and as you can see in this case, are successfully disrupting.
So, Nana, as President Zelensky and the coalition of the willing meet in London, proof, if it were needed, that the real-world consequences of that war raging out in Ukraine are being felt right here in the UK.
Well, perhaps if some of the members of the coalition of the willing would stop buying Russian oil and gas as it goes via India and other sources, and then pretending that it's not Russian and funding the war, as Trump correctly pointed out, then perhaps we could stop the war. But until that point, I can't really take any of them seriously. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Mark White. Thank you very much. Right, so stick with us because still to come. Eventually.
Listen now, Cardiff, and listen, Westminster. This is Caerphilly and Wales telling you we want a better deal for every corner of Wales.
Humiliation for Labour after suffering a by-election disaster in a part of Wales that has been red for a century. This is GB News. We are Britain's #1 news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. 27 minutes now, 28 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akweer, in for Martin Daubney. This is GB News. Moving on, humiliation for Sir Keir Starmer today after suffering a by-election disaster in a part of Wales that has been red for a century. Plaid Cymru romped home in a contest for the Caerphilly seat in the Senate, with Reform securing an extraordinary surge to come second. So is faith in Labour slipping away? And can Reform UK turn poll leads into actual wins? Let's speak with the CEO of Electoral Calculus, Martin Baxter. Martin, now Reform UK, weren't they really the pollsters' favourite to win that seat?
Yes, and in a way that underlines how bad news this is for Labour in particular. That's got to be the starting point. That Labour, remember, as a political party, was founded in Wales by Keir Hardie 100 years ago or more, and Labour have maintained their dominance of Wales ever since. Labour have always held Wales at general elections, and now Keir Hardie's successor, Keir Starmer, is in a struggle to maintain that control on Wales. That in the last general election, Labour won the nearly similar Caerphilly Westminster seat with 38% of the vote. But yeah, here we see, let's have a look at what happened at the by-election, because although it was bad for Labour, there were a couple of other things going on. First of all, we've got to say that it was good for Plaid Cymru, that they we would expect them to get about 20% of the vote in this part of Wales. They got over 45% and won the seats. That's a tremendous result for them. But I suspect that's not everybody in that 45% green column on the left there is an ardent Plaid supporter. We suspect, and we've got evidence by speaking to people in Wales, that many of them are anti-reform tactical voters who used to vote for Labour, the Liberal Democrats or the Greens. That about 2/3 of those people, when we interviewed them just a month ago, said that if it was a competition between Plaid and Reform, they would vote for Plaid to keep Reform out. So that, I think, is artificially, in a way, boosting Plaid's natural support, but Plaid have got a great result and they will be over the moon to be going into the next year's Senedd elections with a result like this. But as you mentioned, Reform is the other big winner tonight, or last night. Although they didn't win, and some people were expecting they were going to win, we see a map here. This is all the little almost street-by-street areas of, this is the Caerphilly Westminster seat, which is quite similar to the Senedd seat. You see lots of areas where Reform should win, and there's a few yellow dots for Plaid, a few red dots for Labour. But although the tactical voting went mostly against Reform, there would have been a few Conservatives who voted tactically for Reform to keep Plaid out. That wasn't enough to tip the balance. On the whole, our figures show that at a Westminster level, even with tactical voting, which could deprive Reform of 80 seats or so, they are still on track to be the largest party at Westminster if there was a general election tomorrow. So there's lots going on. It's great for Plaid, bad for Labour. But for Reform, it's not unsurprising, and I don't think is slowing them down in their moves forward at the moment.
Now, the turnout as well was very high. I mean, it was over 50%, which is, I think it was the highest in history by elections to the Welsh Assembly.
Yes, and in a way, I think that's got to be bad for Labour as well. That shows that people, even in the autumn, in a Senedd election, are turning out in numbers similar to the general election turnout, not to vote for Labour. So that there's quite a lot going on. There's no good news in it for Labour, but exactly where it leaves the Welsh elections next year is not fully clear, because by-elections are, as you know, slightly weird things, and you can have strange events happening one direction or another. So they're not the best tea leaves in the world, but they're certainly unhappy reading in Downing Street today.
Well, it makes very interesting reading and very, very interesting viewing as well. Politics has gone crazy. Thank you very much, Martin Baxter. He's the CEO of Electoral Calculus. Thank you so much. Right, well, there's lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including in what could be yet another sign that the lunatics are in charge of the asylum system. Listen to this. A judge has ruled a Syrian asylum seeker is a 16-year-old child, despite the fact that he has a receding hairline, fully grey hair, crow's feet, a huge Adam's apple, and all the other bits and pieces which would suggest that he is a grown man. Really? You couldn't make it up. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Nana, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories this hour. A Sudanese asylum seeker has been found guilty of murdering a hotel worker on a railway station platform in Walsall. Deng Chalmajek stabbed Rhiannon White 23 times with a screwdriver on a platform at Bescot Stadium railway station in October last year. She died 3 days later in hospital. A group of criminal mercenaries have been jailed for a Russian-inspired arson attack on Ukraine-linked businesses in London last year. The ringleader, 21-year-old Dylan Earle, admitted aggravated arson over the 2024 blaze, which targeted companies delivering satellite equipment from Elon Musk's Starlink to Ukraine. A double murderer has been jailed for life with a minimum term of 42 years after killing a couple and dumping their remains in suitcases near Clifton Suspension Bridge. 35-year-old Justin Andreas Mosquera killed civil partners Albert Alfonso and Paul Longworth in July last year in their flat in Shepherd's Bush in West London. And Sir Keir Starmer and President Zelensky have left Number 10 ahead of the meeting they are currently holding at the moment. Sir Keir Starmer is urging allies to increase Ukraine's supply of long-range weapons to strike back at Russia. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Hello again, very good day to you. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, as we look ahead into the weekend, whilst there will be some sunshine around, we'll also see a few showers for some places and temperatures are dropping as well. That's because what was Storm Benjamin is now to the east of us, but as a result, it's leading to cold Arctic air coming down from the north. And initially, that Arctic air is pushing some rain southwards as we go through this evening and overnight. So particularly eastern parts of Scotland and then later England, seeing some cloudy, wet weather for a time. A bit drier further west, though a scattering of showers pushing through on that brisk northerly wind. Because of the brisk winds, temperatures generally not dropping a huge amount, even though we have colder air pushing its way in. But some parts of Scotland, well, in the sheltered glens, we could see temperatures just about dipping below freezing, and so a touch of frost possible in a few spots. Otherwise, as we go through into tomorrow morning, there will be a fair few showers across northern parts of Scotland coming down. And with that colder air, there's a reasonable chance we're going to see some sleet and snow over any modest higher ground. Also some showers across Northern Ireland. These will just be falling as rain, and similar across western parts of England and Wales. Some showers skirting through. Most other areas, though, starting the day largely dry, and there will be some sunshine as well, albeit across East Anglia, a cloudy, perhaps damp start. Once that rain clears away, though, things turning dry here. Through the middle part of the day, a lot of fine dry weather for many places. It's just in areas exposed to that brisk northerly wind where we're going to continue to see those showers piling through, and with that brisk northerly wind, it's going to feel pretty cold. Temperatures a little bit below average for the time of year and feeling even colder in those strong winds. Little change as we go through into the evening, sticking with showers in areas exposed to that northerly wind. The cloud breaking up a bit further, so more clear skies as we go into Sunday. Sunday starting fine but quite chilly for many of us before some wet and blustery weather pushes through from the northwest later on. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M6 southbound in Staffordshire, an incident causes 90-minute delays between junctions 15 and 14, with 2 lanes closed. Derbyshire's A50 eastbound has severe congestion between the A518 and junction A515 at Sudbury, leading to 50-minute delays. Hampshire's M27 eastbound collision affects traffic between junctions 8 and 9, with a lane closed. And on the trains, disruptions impact Avanti West Coast and London North Western Railway services between Milton Keynes Central and either Northampton or Rugby. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. 37 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akweer in for Martin Daubney. Now, you really couldn't make this story up. It's a Syrian migrant with a deep voice. I know I have one, but, you know, I'm old. And receding grey hair has been ruled to be a child in a tribunal. Now, the migrant claimed that he was 16 when he arrived in Britain on a small boat last year, but Derby City Council carried out an age assessment after his arrival and said that he was significantly over 18 years of age. The Home Office or the Borders said that they also thought that he was between 24 to 26. However, somehow this judge ruled that he was just 16, currently 17. Right, let's talk to the founder of the Sanctuary Foundation, Dr. Krish Kandiah. Krish, come on. This is just, I mean, he's having a laugh. He's got a big Adam's apple. He's got full grey hair. He's got crow's feet. He looks a lot older. And this judge claimed that trauma, genetics, exposure and elements could make him look considerably older. Now, Chris, he also tried to pretend to be slightly illiterate, and the judge said, yeah, but even the judge who claimed that accepted his young age said that he really couldn't be true because he's able to use his smartphone quite easily. Chris, they're taking the mickey.
No, it's good to see you.
It's always difficult to tell how old someone is. I always thought you were in your 20s. You just said you're a little bit older. You can't judge a book by its cover. It's really difficult to tell. So, look, I don't know about the specifics. I haven't seen any pictures, haven't met this young person. It's true that children who have been through war and terror often present older than we might assume they look. So that there are issues there. But I think the bigger challenge is that we don't have a proper immigration system where young people, older people can apply for asylum without having to make this dangerous journey across the channel. Many of them are told by the traffickers and the smugglers to destroy their passports and then lie about their age. Do you know how many Ukrainian children were tested in court to make sure they were the right age? Zero. It's because they had a way to apply from outside the country, have all the checks done, and then they were given a visa, and then they could come across themselves. So I think that's a better system, and then we wouldn't need this kind of problem that we've got right now.
Listen, even if they came through legal means, you know now, because in the Nationality and Borders Bill, the Conservative Party had said that we should be able to scientifically test people for their age if we didn't believe them. And if they refused, then they'd be treated as an adult. But, of course, Labour repealed that. So now, if someone said that they're a certain age and they can quite easily lie, there is no way of properly scientifically assessing whether that to be true. Now, it is important because if he is a teenager, he could be placed... If he's not a teenager, he can be placed in a school alongside young teenage girls. Do you see what I mean, Chris? Also, he gets treated very differently in the eyes of the law. Say he commits crime or does anything like so many of those migrants do. I'm not saying all of them do that, but there are growing numbers of people who are doing it. So, Chris, surely we should be able to scientifically test people for their age.
Look, I agree. We really do need to know how old someone is. That's why I want a whole new system where you can apply from outside. We, as foster parents, have looked after unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. They are incredibly vulnerable. You're right, you don't want inappropriate adults being lumped in with them and put in the same accommodation. I do agree with you on that. So that's why we need a better system. We need a system where you can present your passport and your documents before you leave the country that you're fleeing from, apply to the UK and be given a visa before you try and make any kind of journey. Then you can get on a plane. Yes. You don't have to get on a boat.
But that makes the assumption that the person who's doing it is perfectly good and law-abiding and legitimate. However, if they're not, which it seems that quite a few of these asylum seekers who come here via dinghy, or illegal migrants, as I'll call them, as they come here via dinghy, turns out that quite a few of them are bad eggs. They're not going to do all of that, Chris. They're not. They're really not. And if he's prepared to lie about his age, which clearly... anybody with half a brain would look and realise that he isn't 16 or wasn't 16 when he arrived. And there is no way of testing how old they actually are. This is a dangerous foundation to be working on, surely, because, as you know, Chris, we don't have the system that you're talking about, and we couldn't possibly open the borders to absolutely anyone. We have to be selective.
Look, I agree. We shouldn't open the borders to absolutely everyone.
Exactly.
We want to have control over our borders and compassion. And I do think the system is possible. We managed to make 250,000 Ukrainians have a visa before they left their country and fled for asylum here in the UK. So it is possible very quickly. But I am with you. We want to be sure about who's coming.
Exactly, but to be clear, there was an actual war in Ukraine and we could see it, so we knew. So we set that out because we're being fussy about who we want to let in, who we're going to give, you know, space to in this country, because it's only a small country. So that's what we have to do. We cannot possibly have a system where, oh, well, as long as there's a safe and legal route for any country, we can't do that. So we've chosen the ones that we can do safe and legal routes for, given the space we have in this country. Are you saying that anyone from anywhere should have a safe and legal route to come here?
No, I think we want a safe and legal route, and then we decide as a nation how many people we think we can accommodate. And it shouldn't be based on whether they're from Ukraine, which is the only country apart from maybe Hong Kong that we currently have a safe and legal route for. You can't
come here. No, we don't. That's not true. We have them for Afghanistan.
There is no current easy way for an Afghan to come here. right
But we
now.
did have a quota and we had a safe and legal... We allowed
did
many
have.
and Yes, but then you're saying that anyone from Afghanistan should come. No. And in fact, the Taliban has said, come back, you'll have a better life in Afghanistan. And the doors have reopened. Remember, people coming here to seek asylum should eventually, when the place is fine, will be sent back. That's the idea of seeking asylum or refuge as a refugee. The notion is that when the place gets better, you can go back. So
sadly, Afghanistan is not a safe place right now. Girls can't even go to school in the country without being locked up. So I don't think Afghanistan's a good example.
Well,
look, I think
it is actually because... No.
I think we have more common ground than you think. I think we both want control over our borders and we both want to show compassion to people who are genuinely seeking asylum within limits that we think we can cope with. So I do think we can find that. But this particular case shows us that our current system isn't working and we need a better one.
Yeah, this guy's well over 16, isn't he? It's absolutely absurd. Chris Candiar, always a pleasure. Thank you very much. Really good to talk
Nice
to
to
you.
see you.
All right. Still to come, we'll be talking all things royal as Prince Andrew seems to be in talks to leave the Royal Lodge, whilst Meghan's 10th publicist has quit her team within just 5 years. Oh, I love it. But first, let's get the forecast of some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're looking to escape the cold weather expected this weekend in the UK, you'll find some sunshine in Italy, but plenty of blustery showers about as well. And some fairly wet weather pushing through parts of Portugal, particularly to the north of Lisbon, into much of Spain, especially to the north. And France will be particularly wet with thundery rain in places. Italy, a few showers, but gusty wind as well. Plenty of fine weather for Greece, and it stays that way through the weekend and early next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
We have a very interesting guy in the studio called Will Whitehorn, who's a space expert. And the reason we've got Will in is that NASA have plans to send astronauts to live on the moon. And
It's not how you think, though, is it? It's inside glass bubbles that are going to be made from lunar dust.
OK.
Not in houses.
The American Space Agency is funding research to see if it is possible. And let's get Will, who does believe it's possible. And will you be going, Will?
Well, not to the moon, obviously.
No.
That's going to be a bit expensive. But and I think NASA will be sending astronauts who probably had to train for several years. But I do intend to go to space in the next couple of years, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So how's it going to work? So NASA's unveiling this plan to send astronauts to live on the moon, living in glass bubbles.
Yeah, made of basically moon dust. So there's a huge amount of silica and other similar materials on the moon. And basically using a microwave process, like a microwave oven, of a very sophisticated type, they're going to be able to meld those and construct, and also using 3D, technology, they'll also be able to construct the interiors on the moon. Now, that's because rocketry is expensive, so it's very expensive to take them up.
So it's not that you fill a big space container and bring it to the moon full of this stuff and then assemble it there. You're actually going to fabricate it, make it on the lunar surface.
That's one of NASA's plans. So the first mission going back shortly, in which Elon Musk will be involved with the new Starship rocket that you've probably seen. The Starship is the biggest rocket ever built in human history. And that's going to be able to also go to Mars. But it's also going to be able to carry industrial material to space.
Right. GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference It's fun. No, you didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Welcome back. I'm Nana Okwere. This is GB News. Meghan Markle. Yes, she's lost her 10th publicist in 5 years after her latest employee resigned after just 3 months. Emily Robinson became Harry and Meghan's Director of Communications following her work on TV drama The Crown. Let's have a chat with the former Royal Gardener, Jack Stooks. Jack, she's done it again, or they've done it again. Are we being misleading here? I mean, this is the 10th one in a row. What's happened?
Hi, Nana. Yeah, no, with this situation, this particular, the one, I think with Emily, I don't think it was meant to be a permanent role. I think it was just a temporary role. She hasn't changed her LinkedIn profile. She hasn't sort of spoken about it. So we haven't really heard anything from her or from Meghan or Harry on this one. But, you know, staff do come and go. Staff are changed. Different roles are changed over. I think some of her former publicists have moved roles. So it's not like, you know, people come in the role and then they disappear and another one comes in and then they disappear. They
just
are moved
like
around.
that, Jack. No, it's just like that, Jack. They come in and they go, and they come in and they go. And she would say that it's temporary. I suppose it's probably best for her to advertise it that way, or for them to do it that way, seeing as they're on number 10 now.
No, I do think we're being unfair on this particular one.
I think so. OK, maybe this one. What about the other 9?
I think, you know, this is the thing, Nana. We've seen this before, and it's not just that family. And I think, you know, I'm not saying that sometimes we're correct with our findings of how we're being towards Meghan, but with staff changes, you know, people do come into a different environment and they don't like it. People sort of think, oh, I want to go and work for a celebrity, and they think, let's go and work for Meghan and Harry, and this is going to be a wonderful experience for us. And they get into that role and they just go, do you know what? We really don't want to work for a celebrity. We don't want the publicity that we're now getting, and they don't like it. The same has happened with the King and you know, staff members at Highgrove. The same has happened with the Prince and Princess of Wales. They went through a period where they were losing staff from their household. So yes, there seems to be a few more leaving from Meghan, which I will give you. But I think on this one we are being slightly unfair, and it seems to have sort of only come out now. Yet she left a few months ago, I gather.
Yes, and I wonder why that is. I suspect that perhaps they're making the role a temporary role because it's just full of churn, isn't it? There's every churning. There's any business that goes through that level of churn, it doesn't tend to be a good sign, is it really? Let's be honest. I mean, 10 publicists in the space of, well, it's only been a couple of years, 4 or 5 years maybe. That's not very long, is it? And it's not like it's been 10... Like, it's been sort of one and then another one's got another one, and it's like every 6 months or so they seem to be changing, people refusing to work for it, and we hear some very bad stories as well. So there's obviously some element of truth. But let's move on to Andrew. Royal Lodge. Apparently he hasn't paid any rent, ever.
This is what we're now finding out. I think they call it a peppercorn rent, don't they? So if I'm right in thinking, he's sort of probably paying about £1 a year to live in the house. But... yeah, that story definitely isn't going away. You know, we spoke about this before, and I do think that something is going to have to give at some point with him having to move out of that house, because it's just the noises are getting louder. We've now got the government saying they don't want to talk about it anymore because they're being told by the palace not to. And you're sort of thinking, well, if he's completely innocent in all this, I would have said, if I was the palace, look into everything you can, because he's innocent, so let's just clear his name for once and for all and be done with it. But everybody seems to be shutting down, and nobody really knows what they're doing. So the only way forward is for him to keep on taking a step backwards and another step backwards and another step backwards. And, you know, before we know it, we'll not hopefully have this situation come up, and the family can move hopefully past this, because, you know, it is being quite a big knock for the King.
It is a bit, but then where's he going to go now? Where's he going to work? No one's going to employ him, really, are they? And he's not I don't know. Listen, seriously, it's just none of it is good, really. But listen, Jack Stooks, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is Jack Stooks, who's a former royal gardener. Right, well, stay with us. This is GB News. We are Britain's #1 news channel. Coming up, we will return to the breaking news as an asylum seeker has been found guilty of murdering Rhiannon White, who worked at the hotel where he stayed. There's lots of these stories coming out, isn't it? It's very troubling. I'd love to hear your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. This is GB News. First, let's get your latest weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, very good day to you. This is your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, as we look ahead into the weekend, whilst there will be some sunshine around, we'll also see a few showers for some places and temperatures are dropping as well. That's because what was Storm Benjamin is now to the east of us, but as a result, it's leading to cold Arctic air coming down from the north. And initially, that Arctic air is pushing some rain southwards as we go through this evening and overnight. So particularly eastern parts of Scotland and then later England, seeing some cloudy, wet weather for a time. A bit drier further west, though a scattering of showers pushing through on that brisk northerly wind. Because of the brisk winds, temperatures generally not dropping a huge amount, even though we have colder air pushing its way in. But some parts of Scotland, well, in the sheltered glens, we could see temperatures just about dipping below freezing, and so a touch of frost possible in a few spots. Otherwise, as we go through into tomorrow morning, there will be a fair few showers across northern parts of Scotland coming down. And with that colder air, there's a reasonable chance we're going to see some sleet and snow over any modest higher ground. Also some showers across Northern Ireland. These will just be falling as rain, and similar across western parts of England and Wales. Some showers skirting through. Most other areas, though, starting the day largely dry, and there will be some sunshine as well, albeit across East Anglia, a cloudy, perhaps damp start. Once that rain clears away, though, things turning dry here. Through the middle part of the day, a lot of fine dry weather for many places. It's just in areas exposed to that brisk northerly wind where we're going to continue to see those showers piling through, and with that brisk northerly wind it's going to feel pretty cold. Temperatures a little bit below average for the time of year and feeling even colder in those strong winds. Little change as we go through into the evening, sticking with showers in areas exposed to that northerly wind. The cloud breaking up a bit further, so more clear skies as we go into Sunday. Sunday starting fine but quite chilly for many of us before some wet and blustery weather pushes through from the northwest later on. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M8 eastbound is restricted after junction 4 due to a collision. Expect congestion on the M4 eastbound at junction 33 Capel-Lanilturn. In Wakefield, the M1 southbound at junction 38 is delayed by a broken down vehicle closing 2 lanes. In Staffordshire, 2 lanes are closed on the M6 southbound between junctions 15 and 14 after an incident, causing over 90 minutes of delays. In Hertfordshire, the M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 25 and 24 has 1 lane closed due to a broken down vehicle. And on the trains, disruptions are reported between Milton Keynes Central and Northampton or Rugby. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's the final week to see how you can become our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps 4, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. 1 entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Jubes & Co. with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good afternoon. It is 5 o'clock. It is 5, and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News with me, Nana Akweer. We are broadcasting live across the UK. Now, any moment now, we're expecting to hear from the world leaders for the Coalition of the Willing. But first, we have some breaking news. A police manhunt is underway to find the Epping Hotel migrant sex attacker after he was accidentally released from jail. GB News' national reporter Charlie Peter joins me now. Charlie Peters, this sounds almost unbelievable. Please tell us more.
Well, Nana Akweer, the Sun is reporting that Hadush Kabutu, who was jailed last month for sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl in Epping, was meant to be released to a deportation facility, but has been mistakenly freed. This being reported by the Sun newspaper, who say that a critical incident has been declared by the police and that a major operation is now underway to find him, with police officers scrambling, they say, to chase down this prisoner. The Justice Secretary, David Lammy, is also understood to be furious, reports the newspaper, and they're adding that he's working with the police, as you'd expect, to find the criminal. Now, he was found guilty last month at a trial at Chelmsford Magistrates Court of touching and trying to kiss a schoolgirl in Epping in July, which of course sparked so many of those protests outside the Bell Hotel where Hadush Kabutu was staying. Those demonstrations were it's sparked by that situation because he was an asylum seeker from Ethiopia brought into the community and then had gone on to commit those sexual attacks, with him being found guilty of a range of crimes at the time at Chelmsford's Magistrates Court. The judge there said that it must have been disgusting and a sickening experience for the girl. But those victims and those who supported that girl now have to face what appears to be the case, that this man has escaped. And the person who committed those disgusting and sickening acts is back on the run, freed from detention. The newspaper reporting he was meant to be taken to a deportation centre, but instead has been freed from jail. We've spoken to the Ministry of Justice just moments ago, and they confirm that they are looking into the situation. Essex Police have not responded to a request from us at this stage. It did recently emerge that Kabutu, this Ethiopian asylum seeker, was being protected in prison. He is having contacts with other inmates in his Category B jail, and his contact has been limited for his own protection, as you can imagine, being such a notorious prisoner whose incidents and whose crimes sparked nationwide interest and outrage and, of course, protest outside that hotel. The 41-year-old has been placed on a standard regime at the jail, which means he was allowed a TV, access to books, and he was also given around £20 per week in the prison shop. But at the moment, Nana, he's not bothered about the prison shop or the regime at the jail because It said that he has been accidentally released from the jail and is being essentially hunted down by police forces now. This could now, Nana, become a multi-force operation if Hadush Kabatu has moved more broadly around the country. We know that Essex Police had to call in several other police forces in what's called mutual aid earlier over the summer due to them trying to deal with the several protests that had sparked outside the Bell Hotel. Well, they could now have to rely on more support for catching a sex offender who was staying at the Bell Hotel, an asylum seeker who, it's reported, has been accidentally freed from prison. It comes, Nana, of course, as the British prison system is in crisis, with early release being conducted at various points over the last 13 months to help ease overcrowding and allow more prisoners to get into particularly Category Bs, where this Ethiopian asylum seeker was imprisoned. But early release doesn't mean accidental release, does it, Nana? So serious questions for the prison service and Essex Police as well, as they, we imagine they'll be launching their urgent operation to locate Hadush Kabatu tonight.
Right, you literally couldn't make this up. Now, I know Mark White was actually at that trial in Chelmsford. Mark White, I mean, this is just absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, it's completely shocking. In a week in which, you know, we've gone from crisis to absolute farce and back to even deeper crisis, because it's clearly very worrying. The fact is, when I was in court for the sentencing of Hadush Kabatu, the judge said that he was absolutely a risk to women and girls. That this was a man who would go on to offend, that only 8 days into the country he had tried to solicit and advance sexual advances towards young girls, and indeed a woman that had tried to help him initially. He'd engaged her in conversation. She wanted to help him write a CV to help him in his current circumstances, and he reached out and put his hand on her thigh. She kind of brushed him off, but she still went away to get into the local shop a paper and pen to help him. When she came back out, she saw him then trying to reach over and kiss a young girl, a very young teenage girl. At that point, she dialed 999 and was very forthright in trying to get the police there to arrest this man. I should say we reached out to the Ministry of Justice for comment on this. They've just provided us with this statement saying that they are looking into reports that Epping migrant sex attacker Hadush Kabatu has been accidentally released from jail. So clearly, like, not shooting it down. So we take it from that it is an accurate story as far as we can gather from what the Sun is reporting, and they are going to they're looking into it and will provide a more detailed account. But Hadush Kabatu, it was interesting listening to him and the mitigation that was being put forward by his legal counsel, saying how deeply sorry he was. And the judge wasn't having any of it. The judge didn't think that he was sorry at all. He was just sorry that he was caught. He had said that he wanted to go back to Ethiopia. Astonishingly, he said, and this was part of the mitigation to the judge, he said that he didn't understand the laws in this country. He didn't understand that the UK seemed to be so strict. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure even in Ethiopia, trying to sexually assault an underage girl would be a crime. But there you go. That was a man. And now the real worrying issue at play here is if he is at large, if he has been accidentally released rather than transferred to another facility, then there is a danger there, because clearly this is a man with a compulsion who, it was demonstrated just 8 days into the country, repeatedly on multiple occasions spoke to teenagers and a grown woman and tried to engage them in conversation and tried to sexually assault those people.
And the worry is, if he was at a deportation centre, was that before he goes to prison or before they deport him? Because what was the deal? I thought he was sentenced to prison, so wouldn't he go to prison first?
So automatically, if you're jailed for 12 months or more, then you fall into a process where the government will consider you for deportation. The likelihood is that as a foreign national offender serving 12 months or more, you will be deported. It can take some time. Quite often what happens is people at the end of a sentence will be released and I think we're going to just our process.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Mark. Right, well, let's get to the Prime Minister, who's due to make remarks to President Zelensky. He's there now.
We saw the sentencing of 6 men for Russian-sponsored arson attack on a warehouse in East London. This was a warehouse storing humanitarian aid and satellite equipment destined for Ukraine. We will not tolerate this hostile activity. And it just underlines the point. Your security is our security. What happens on the front line of Donetsk today is shaping our collective future for years to come. And that's why Emmanuel and I brought the Coalition of the Willing together again today. We stand with you, stronger than ever, united behind Ukraine, and united with President Trump in calling for the fighting to stop now, and for the negotiations to begin from the current line of contact. President Trump is right to have imposed sanctions on Russia's oil majors, as the UK has also done, alongside the latest package from the EU. And we must now maintain this pressure. Vladimir, you have said for months that you're ready for a ceasefire and you're ready to meet Putin. Yet he continues to stall and play for time. Putin is the only person who does not want to stop this war. His strikes on civilians this week made that crystal clear once again, targeting energy infrastructure ahead of winter, hitting young children in their nursery, claiming the lives in Kyiv of a 12-year girl and a 6-month-old baby. This is who Putin is. Time after time, he rejects the chance to end the war. In just the last few days, he's rejected the opportunity for talks once again, instead making ludicrous demands for Ukrainian land, which he could not and has not taken by force. Of course, that is a complete non-starter, and it shows yet again that he's not serious about peace. So we've been clear today that we must respond. Working with the US, this coalition is determined to go further than ever to ratchet up the pressure on Putin, from the battlefield to his war economy, because that is the only way to change his mind and push him back to the table. And in our meeting this afternoon, we came together around a clear plan for the rest of this year. First, we will act to take Russian oil and gas off the global market. Last week, the UK became the first country to sanction all of Russia's oil majors. On Wednesday, the US acted decisively to join us, together with further sanctions from the EU. And we're choking off funding for Russia's war machine. And I'm urging others to take these steps too, to go further to reduce their dependencies and incentivize third countries to stop buying these tainted resources. Second, we're determined to push on with the progress on Russia's sovereign assets and unlock billions to help finance Ukraine's defense. The bill for Russia's destruction in Ukraine should be paid by Russia. So we want to move ahead at speed with the work needed to deliver reparation loans and get the funds flowing to Ukraine. Third, we are strengthening Ukraine's air defense to protect its civilians and its energy infrastructure. I announced today that we're accelerating our UK programme to provide Ukraine with more than 5,000 lightweight multi-role missiles. This programme has created hundreds of brilliant jobs in Belfast, and they're working now to deliver an additional 140 missiles ahead of schedule to bolster Ukraine's defences through the depths of winter. Fourth, we will keep up the military pressure on Putin through the continued provision of long-range capabilities. And finally, while now is the time to prioritise pressure, we're also continuing our work on security guarantees, including the multinational force Ukraine, to uphold a just and lasting peace when that day finally comes. Because, and I say it again, Ukraine's future is our future. What happens in the weeks and months ahead is pivotal for the security of the United Kingdom and all our allies across NATO and beyond. So we are determined to act now, to dial up the pressure on Putin and finally bring him to the negotiating table in good faith. Thank you. Now let me hand over to my friend Vladimir.
Thank you so much, Karen. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, Keir, Mette, Dick, Mark, and everyone here, thanks you for today's meeting, today's coalition. These are two important days for us, very important today. The meeting of the Coalition of the Willing in London, and the day before there was an EU leaders meeting in Brussels. I thank you guys for all the support and your readiness to keep helping. And today, all the partners confirmed that next year they will continue to support Ukraine, our country, our resilience, especially the financial support, which is crucial. And today, the new Prime Minister of Japan joins the coalition for the first time, and all the signals are clear. Thank you. We all see the challenges these days, and the Russians are carrying out a campaign of terror against our energy system, and they really want to make the winter cold a tool of torment and pressure on Ukraine, our people, and on our defense. And Russia's goal hasn't changed. They want to break us, want to break Ukraine, and they are doing everything to achieve it. So that's why our defense means everything that truly stops Russia from killing, destroying, and terrorizing. First, air defense, and today we spoke in detail with our partners about the systems. It's important that our partners focus on what's most practical and effective, and we gave all the details. Second, of course, it's important that everyone agrees the front needs substantial attention, and the focus must be on it, and thank for all the steps of help. And third, we are promoting a more meaningful approach to diplomacy. Diplomacy matters only when it can lead to real decisions. And when it comes to Russia, that dish has many ingredients. The essential ones are real forms of pressure on Russia, sanctions, our long-range capabilities, political pressure, accountability for war crimes, and real actions regarding Russian assets. Today we all agreed sanctions that hit Russian oil infrastructure, Russian oil companies are a big step, and I thank President Trump and all our partners who are implementing this. And we have to apply pressure not only to Rosneft and Lukoil, but to all Russian oil companies like Surgutneftegaz and others, and to the shadow fleet and its infrastructure, and to Russia's oil terminals. And we have to implement all we have discussed today about the Russia's shadow fleet. Besides, we are carrying out our own campaign of pressure with drones and missiles, specifically targeting the Russian oil sector. So the long-range capability directly strengthens diplomacy, the more losses Putin suffers on his own territory. The fewer assaults he can carry out on the front line, and the faster he will agree to meaningful diplomacy. That is why we are working to secure Tomahawk cruise missiles, additional Storm Shadow missiles, other capabilities. Thank you very much, Keir, for today's decision. Thank you for your support that you said, and about long range. And there must be no option left for Russian except to end the war and return peace to our country. And of course, I also want to thank our partners for working with us to produce weapons, for investing in our country, for joint projects, and for the agreements we are now implementing. And one more point is Pearl program. I thank for each contribution. Mark, thank you for coordinating this program, for each contribution, and today we agreed to step up in the coming months. Peace is born from pressure on the aggressor, and that is what we must continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Volodymyr. Mark, can I turn to you?
Yeah, thank you, and good afternoon. And as Keir Starmer and Volodymyr Zelensky have said, we just concluded a very productive meeting.
So that was Keir Starmer and, of course, Volodymyr Zelensky, the Coalition of the Willing. That was a speech as to what they plan to do. Most interesting in there that Keir Starmer pointed out 5 points: that he would take oil and gas off the table, off the market, and incentivise third countries to do so. Number 2, he said push on with the process of Russian assets, so use them to pay for the weapons that they're supplying to Ukraine. 3, strengthening Ukraine's air defences and creating 5,000 missiles. Number 4, keep the military pressure on Putin. And finally, 5, prioritise security guarantees, because he said that Ukraine's future is our future. That's all well and good, but there's no mention of how you'd protect this country, because I think that's also important. But stay with me, because I'm joined in the studio by GBNews' Home and Security Editor, Mark White, also former British Army spokesperson, Major Mike Shearer. I'm going to start with you, Major Mike Shearer. OK, a 5-point plan, all very well. They said they wouldn't buy Russian oil and gas. Of course, they've been doing this all along anyway, so they've been funding their own war. Donald Trump pointed it out. They may not buy it directly, but it's processed elsewhere, and then they buy it from that third country. They're saying that they're going to stop doing that as well, by the sounds of things.
Well, look, it's 5 points that he mentioned, Nana. He clearly watches GB News, because we've been saying that on this channel for well over 18 months. Every single marker that he hit there has been mentioned before. Let's just remember that up until recent times, right up until now, that Russia has lifted their wartime economy to spend on munitions by 40%. They spent more in recent times on their war effort, their war chest, than the whole of Europe put together. We need to get serious. And I'm sorry for being a skeptic on this, but this coalition of the willing, while it all sounds very good, I see showboating, because who's in charge? Who is in charge? What I would like to see is a proper chain of command, and that already exists with NATO. Now, even if our American cousins are going to push us off at the hand and say, it's in Europe, guys, get on with it, I can almost accept that. But we still could stand up with the NATO Secretary-General, Mark Rutte, who is the chain of command. And if the European nations want to give extra funds to that, all well and good, but at least decisions will be made. I haven't heard anything new today, and actually all I've heard the Prime Minister say today with some surety was paraphrasing Donald Trump about the oil. And it's the first time he's really been quite vociferous about that.
Well, I mean, it's about time, and he said it, meant it, but the worry here is it's all talk, isn't it? It was the same thing with Zelensky. Zelensky was talking, saying, thanking everybody, asking for Tomahawks and long-range missiles. As much as I think that's, you know, potentially the right thing to do, what about what we've got here in the UK if Russia decides to turn on us? What have we got to protect ourselves?
The whole discussion on what you're speaking about there, Nana, is national resilience. Now, if a missile was to come UK-wide, are we going to get one of these texts that was emulated by someone else a few days after? So that's not resilient enough. And if we were going to have the old SARings, nobody would know what it stood for. We don't have... We have no national resilience worth talking about.
It's really worrying. Major Mike Shearer, thank you very much. Mark White, to react on the back of that, first of all.
Well, listen, this is just part of an ongoing process. You have Vladimir Zelensky on a regular basis going around the world. Those trips are all about extending the hand of friendship, yes, but a begging hand, looking for money, looking for military equipment, and he has to do that regularly because he needs to keep the war effort going. And from Keir Starmer and other Western leaders' point of view, they need to keep this front and centre in the imagination of the British public and populations right around the West, because there are countries now, 3.5 years into this war, who have their own issues around economic difficulties, priorities that they would like to see the many millions of pounds that has been given to Ukraine spent on in their home countries, and they need to be told by these politicians of the importance of continuing to support Ukraine. So that's the optics of what we're seeing here again.
All right, thank you very much, Mark White, and also Major Michael Shearer, thank you. Right, well, let's return to the breaking news that the police manhunt is underway to find the Epping hotel migrant sex attacker after he was accidentally released from jail. Honestly, well, let's speak to former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley, who joins me now. Peter, I'm feeling an episode of Keystone Cops coming here.
Well, this is what you get when you've got David Lammy as a Justice Minister, Shabana Mahmood as a Home Secretary and a Labour government. It's quite frankly appalling. All those people now who went to the streets of Epping to protest surely have been entirely vindicated, and there will be further protests now because an ineffective criminal justice system has just released a dangerous sex offender back onto the streets when he should be behind bars. It's an utter disgrace.
Well, of course, it's not. I guess it's not really Labour's fault in this respect. And David Lammy is said to be furious about what has happened. So they weren't directly the people who would have stopped this person from escaping. But it is just the mess of it all. How would that happen? I just don't get it.
Well, probably administrative errors, but you've got to remember, and I'm going to challenge you now on whether the Labour government have some responsibility for this. It was Shabana Mahmood as Justice Secretary that started the early release of prisoners. It's her that's pushing a bill forward, which is going to release more prisoners early. And what I suspect happened was this prisoner, who should not have been released, was probably swept up among a batch of prisoners who were being early released. That would be my best guess. So, yes, responsibility does lay with the politicians. It's them who are letting prisoners out early to free up prison space because the system is overcrowded and not fit for purpose. And the whole criminal justice system is in an absolute mess, from policing at the front line to the CPS, to the courts, to the prisons, all the way through to probation. And this is a perfect example today of how Britain is becoming increasingly more dangerous.
I mean, I think when she said early release, she didn't mean that early. And also we need to, some of the blame of this, if we are going to blame people, it has to fall on the fact that the previous government didn't build more prison space or do anything really, and left it in a very critical position. But still, there was space for him, and this is purely some sort of administrative error caused by people just not really paying attention. This makes Britain look like a laughingstock, doesn't it?
Regretfully, this once great nation is a laughingstock in so many regards. Dingies pulling up in their hordes, thousands of people illegally flooding into this country. The crime on the streets of Britain increasing every year, becoming more lawless, more dangerous. And I'm afraid this nation is a laughingstock already. And I've got friends who live over the pond in America, and they just shake their heads when I talk to them about what's happening in the UK.
And what message does it send to other migrants, of course? Because if they are arrested, they know they could potentially abscond in such an easy manner. I mean, he's on the loose now as we speak.
The message being sent to migrants is come to the UK. You'll get in. You'll get a free hotel. You'll get free clothing. You'll get free food. In all likelihood, you'll be allowed to stay, and then you'll get benefits, and then you can live off you can break the law if you want, because so many of them go on to enter the illegal tobacco industry, for example, and other forms of criminality. We've got open border policy, open doors, and it's a shambles.
That's exactly the word that just before you said it, Peter, I knew you were heading there. And I also think it's quite embarrassing, really, because it goes to show that nothing is up to scratch in this country. Because would it have been police officers that would have made the mistake, or would it have been prison guards that have made the mistake? Who would have made this actual physical mistake?
It's an administrative error, I would suspect, within the prison system, as whatever prison he was being held, or perhaps a message that was handed down. But either way, it's just an embarrassment. It's a joke. I used to be so proud to be part of the criminal justice system of this wonderful nation, and now it's just an embarrassment to live here, let alone anything else.
And we pay such high taxes as well, and this is one of many different things that are happening. I mean, we've had a migrant who has, killed somebody with a screwdriver, who is about to be sentenced, is found guilty today. It's not that all migrants, illegal migrants are bad. It's just that we don't know who they are when they enter this country, and then we allow them to roam free. And I think that, to me, apart from the fact they've come here easily, illegally, via a small dinghy, but now those ones that are here, does there need to be some sort of change as to how they're treated when they get here, rather than them being allowed to roam free? Because that's why these things are happening.
They need to be stopped from coming here. And if only we had a government with a spine that would ignore international convention and do what they need to do to keep this country safe. So many of these migrants are entering into criminality, whether that be organised crime, sexual crime, whatever it may be. We are importing people into this country who we don't know where they've come from, we don't know their background, we don't know their intentions. It's utter lunacy.
I don't know where anyone anywhere would allow somebody into their own home, not knowing who the hell they are, and say, hey, stay, have a meal, stay in my house, to sleep in the bed upstairs. Peter Bleksley, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. He's a former Scotland Yard detective. Now joining me in the studio, GBNews' Home and Security Editor Mark White on this breaking story. So the migrant, you were there at Chelmsford Crown Court whilst he was being sentenced, and he was sentenced. I mean, his sentence was quite a good sentence, I suppose. Some people weren't happy, but at least he was at a decent length of time.
Yeah, listen, at the risk of stealing a phrase from Martin Daubney, this is utterly extraordinary. It really is astonishing what has happened here. Listen, it's not the first time that people have been accidentally released from custody. It happens from time to time. Under this Labour government or the Conservatives before, to be fair to Labour, it's happened. But to be the individual who had garnered such public attention right across the UK, because this was the man who had committed an offence, found guilty in the magistrates' court of that, who people turned out in their thousands to protest about because of the crimes that he committed and other crimes linked to the Bell Hotel in Epping. It brought disorder on a couple of occasions. It brought a great deal of concern within the community about who was being housed in that particular hotel. And then, as we know, it sparked this wave, fresh wave of protests at asylum-seeking hotels right across the country. You can't overstate how pivotal this individual is to some of the sort of issues and the disorder and the real concern that has been felt across the country in recent months. Here he was, having finally been convicted and jailed. I was at Chelmsford Magistrates Court for his sentence, which was on the 23rd of September. So he'd only been in jail for a month. The magistrate handed down that 12-month sentence. That was the maximum as a magistrate that he could do without referring it to another court, the Crown Court. He felt that was the appropriate sentence for this individual, knowing that at the 12-month mark, what would happen then is that would kick in the automatic process where the Home Office could begin deportation of a foreign national offender. The Home Office confirmed to us that that indeed was their intention, that they would deport this man, but instead it seems rather than being sent as part of this process to that immigration deportation centre, he's been released from this Category B prison. He's now, as far as we know, on the run. He hasn't, realising, oh, there must be some mistake here, gone in to a local police station to hand himself in. There is an active manhunt underway. And the reason why this is of concern and is worrying is that the judge's own sentencing remarks really portrayed this man as the danger he absolutely was to women and girls. A man who repeatedly offended just days after arriving in this country. A man who really never showed any remorse for the offending that he was then found guilty of. Just, in the judge's words, more sorry for himself. He said that he wanted to go back to Ethiopia, that he didn't realise that the laws in this country were so strict around this issue of assaulting young girls. So he said he was happy to go, but clearly not that happy if he is still out and about in the streets of a UK town or city at the moment. We don't know where he is at this moment in time, and that is what will be worrying the police. Does he have contacts elsewhere that he could manage to move to another location, or is he in that local area in Essex? If he's in the local area in Essex, that's the epicentre of how concerned people were around Epping and around Chelmsford and the like. So, of course, people are going to be very, very concerned at this news tonight.
Do we know where he went missing initially, or are they not prepared to release that? Because, of course, where was he? How, was he? Which prison was he being transferred to, or which centre was he in?
I don't have the name of the prison. It might be there. I'm just not up to speed.
They may not want to release that, though.
No, it was Category B prison, and he was at one point deemed to be an escape risk. However, having said that, apparently the regime that he was being held under wasn't that restrictive. He was allowed his television, he was allowed to mix with other prisoners. And a Category B prison is still secure. This wasn't an issue of him escaping over the prison walls, though, so it's not the security of the prison here. It's one of these administrative errors.
They actually released him.
Yeah, just to see they do that. And this is a consequence, actually, of a penal system, the criminal justice system, in particular the prison estate, which is in a state of disarray and crisis, where there are too few people managing too many offenders in prison and having to deal with all of the admin around. I'm not making excuses for them. This is a ghastly mistake, and I'm sure whoever was responsible for it is going to be hauled over the coals. No doubt about that at all. But it is a consequence of just the crisis within that prison system, that it is completely overstretched and overcrowded.
Now, I grew up in Chelmsford, so that's my manor, as it were. And I know where that prison is. That's where they filmed Porridge, isn't it?
Yeah.
My family live in Chelmsford, actually, as it goes. So it'll be a very worrying time. I'm going to tell them all to lock their doors and don't go out at all, because, I mean, if he is at large, obviously, if you are in Chelmsford, just be very wary, because he's not being caught. He's been out for, a couple of hours already. He was released by accident by someone. Which he must have thought his Christmases had all come at once. He did say that he wanted to go back to Ethiopia, and the irony would be that we're trying to stop him from getting out of this country now, because he actually wants to leave. But the other thing is, he is seen as a danger to women.
Yes, but
that is worrying.
No, if he really wanted to leave, he wouldn't just have wandered away when he was accidentally released. He would be part and parcel of the process that would have resulted in the expedited removal of this individual from the country. I should say what we're looking at there are the images of Hadush Kabatu when he was arrested by the police. So he was arrested after a member of the public, a young woman who had tried to help this asylum seeker in Epping, was actually sexually assaulted herself. He spoke to her on the pretense that he wanted help with a CV, and she wanted to do her best by him, obviously. But he put his hand on her thigh. She said she was shocked by that, but just brushed it away. But then still continued to try and help him. She went into a local shop to get a piece of paper and a pen to then come back out and help him with that CV, only to find him then sexually assaulting the young schoolgirl. And it was at that point that she dialed 999 in a hell of a state, understandably, to get the police there as quickly as possible to arrest this man. And he was arrested. On that body-worn video, he's there saying how sorry he was and how regretful he was, but, you know, still denying when he got to court at the end of the day after being charged that he'd done anything wrong at all. It was all a bit of a mistake. He was just being overly friendly, is how it was portrayed. But as I say, the judge really didn't have any sympathy for him whatsoever. And actually, as I say, not just warning that he was a danger to women and girls, but acknowledging the real trauma that had been suffered by both the woman and the 14-year-old girl that he had sexually assaulted, victim impact statements that were heard in court by them. And, you know, it had really impacted, in particular, the teenage girl. And like she said, she doesn't like wearing her school uniform anymore. She was in a school uniform that day and wearing a skirt. And when she gets home, she goes back and she changes into long trousers. She said if she goes out in the local area, she'll only go out if there are friends or family to take her out. She curtails her sort of evenings now to get home, usually with a lift from her mother or a family friend or something. So it has an impact, of course it does.
Well, of course it does. And now apparently in another report, he was released on expectation that he would be picked up by immigration and enforcement. But it's currently unclear what happened next. So he was actually released specifically to be picked up by enforcement. And this is sort of the state of things, that we've got a very bad communication between the different services within this country. That we see that in child services, we see that across the board. And they say that now, obviously, there's a manhunt. The local MP, Marie Goldman, said in a statement following the accidental release, "I am closely following developments and am in contact with the police and the prison. The police must do everything they can to ensure that this man is returned to custody immediately so that he is deported at once."
Well, it might shock people to learn of the fact that actually a lot of immigration offenders, you know, people that have been caught here illegally in the country, either having overstayed their visa, come into the country illegally through some routes, when they're found, and you would automatically expect, here we've caught an illegal immigrant in the country that they then plan to remove. The last thing you would want to do is release that person knowing that, having escaped into the illegal economy in the past, that they would do it again. But such is the state of the system and the number of people that are there. There's just not enough places in immigration detention for these people. The vast majority are released on bail. Now, foreign national offenders, quite a number of them will then go on to be, especially if they're serious offenders, will go on to be held in an immigration detention centre even after their legitimate release from prison. So what I mean by that is once they've served his sentence. He's not served his sentence, but you know, even some of those, Nana, that have served a prison term and then are going to be deported because they are foreign national offenders, still get released on bail on the understanding that trust them that they come back. And of course, as is inevitable with criminal offenders, quite a number of them don't. But this is such a high-profile case. I don't think he was ever meant to be allowed to just go out on his own volition. He will have been supposed to have been picked up by immigration enforcement to be then taken to one of these detention centres, because there's no way that they would, you know, the authorities would have allowed him, given the high-profile nature of who he is, what the judges said about him in terms of the danger that he is to the public. He would not be allowed to wander free. So it is a complete, you know...
Yeah. Yeah,
I won't swear.
I saw the words and I just didn't say them. I'm sure the viewers and listeners are thinking the same thing. Now, the MP also said that once the manhunt is over, there must be a full, rapid public inquiry into how this happened. This is utterly unacceptable, has potentially put my constituents in danger. I expect answers from the prison service. That's the local MP, Marie Goldman. The thing that worries me is the only reason that we know all about this is because this was a very high-profile case, which you pointed out earlier. But I'm wondering how many other of these migrants have escaped in this manner, because obviously the spotlight is on this particular character. It's been a high-profile case and trial. The people of Epping made a huge song and dance about it, which I absolutely agree with them on, which they should have done, and he got a 12-month sentence. The plan was to deport him. Obviously, this is where it's gone wrong. But there will be others who may have had that same thing where they're meant to be deported.
Absolutely.
And they abscond as well, but nobody gets to hear about it.
Well, because they're low level in terms of their priority, the public exposure. You're absolutely right. Listen, some major breaking news that we can bring you now, which is the confirmation, because it was only reports, and we're going off reports in the Sun, the confirmation from the prison service that he has indeed been released in error and he is still at large. This is a statement. We are urgently working with police to return an offender to custody following a release in error at HMP Chelmsford. So confirmation there, Nana, it is Chelmsford prison that he was held in. The statement goes on to say, public protection is our top priority, and we have launched an investigation into this incident. So, a very significant breaking news confirmation there that the story that the Sun were reporting is 100% accurate. This man, Hadush Kabatu, was released in error, is still at large. That's a worrying aspect here. Still at large in the community, and they're urgently now trying to trace him.
All right, Mark White, so right there. Let's cross live to journalist Jack Hadfield, who has some news of the protest in Epping tonight. Jack, what more can you tell us?
Yeah, so I've just been informed pretty recently, within the last 5 to 10 minutes, that the people of Epping are absolutely furious about this situation. I'm hearing that they're going to be gathering around 7 o'clock, probably outside the Bell Hotel. I'm not sure. I don't have the full details. But yes, this is going to be a flash protest on the streets of Epping because, quite frankly, these people are going to be furious because, obviously, this man who I don't think should have been in the country to begin with, went on to commit this terrible crime, was found guilty of it. It's about to be sent to prison. And now, because of the sheer incompetence of the police and the state, he is now let free. And he is now on the streets of this country where he could commit any of these crimes again.
Well, this is the thing. And what I was pointing out to Mark is that, OK, he's high profile, we know about him, but they must have been making these kind of mistakes all the time. We would never know about this.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. That's the thing, you know, it's known knowns and known unknowns and unknown unknowns, as it all goes back to. You know, we just simply have no idea just how many men like him are in asylum hotels in this country, have been completely lost in the system, just wandering the streets of Britain. You know, we don't really know just what the significance of the threat is to especially women and girls, but to everybody else that just wants to live their daily lives peacefully on the ground here. You know, and that really is the scariest thought in all this.
Well, it just highlights as well how disjointed the whole system is, which is how people can fall through the cracks, and then we have no record of these people. And when we're saying that there are however many migrants, 48,000 or whatever it is, that have come to this country illegally, we don't really know, because the reality is those numbers could be so much higher. And it's not just down to those who were in migrant hotels. People are still probably coming here via lorries and all the other old methods. So we seriously have a problem in this country. We have an honest and serious problem, and the government needs to start acknowledging this and doing something quite serious to solve it.
I completely agree, and I do think that, honestly, with this situation here, you know, heads are going to have to roll. Somebody senior and significant will have to pay for this complete grave error. You know, if that was an error at all. I've seen people online saying that, oh, you know, really, you know, like the police don't actually care about protecting us. It's either error or deliberate malice. I don't think it's malice. I think really that this state is so completely incompetent. We have a massive competency crisis in this country because those at the top just simply do not know how to run things properly. You know, you can see this with how the prevalence of DEI and woke, and how all these people at the top of these institutions seem so, you know, they care more about, say, diversity in the police force than actually making sure sex attackers are being put in prison at the right time. Those are their priorities, and that's why I do think, you know, somebody at the top within Essex Police should be fired for this.
Yeah, all right, Jack Hadfield, thank you very much. Really good to hear your thoughts. Joining me now in the studio, GBNews' Home and Security Editor, Mark White.
Right, so sources just confirming to me now that a prison officer has been removed from discharging duties while an investigation is carried out into this error. Now, sources say these releases in error are extremely rare, and there is an internal review, an urgent investigation that is underway. Also, confirmation from this source that Hadush Kabatu was in the process of being transferred to an immigration removal centre, which was part of that planned process of deporting him back to Ethiopia. So significant news there. We just had it a few minutes ago with the confirmation from the prison service that indeed a prisoner had been released, and we know it to be Hadush Kabatu, in error. And now a source confirming that a prison officer has been removed from duties pending an investigation and an internal review into this whole ghastly mistake.
All right, Mark White, thank you very much. Let's bring in former Metropolitan Police Officer, a senior investigating officer, Peter Kirkham. Peter, how can anybody have any faith in the police and the whole process if errors like this, we only know about this one because this was such a profile, there may well be lots of errors like this happening, Peter?
I don't think there's a lot, but they're certainly not the first. These things happen. They happen for a variety of reasons. Sometimes the prisoners pull the wool over the prison officers' eyes in some way. Sometimes there are administrative errors. Sometimes there are calculation errors in the time served and things like that. So there's a variety of reasons rather than any particular one that's always the case. But yes, as you say, it undermines trust in the system. I'm not sure it undermines trust in the police. Well, it might do the way it's portrayed in the media, but it's not really the police's issue releasing people from prison. It's the prison officers, the prison staff.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, I'm talking about the whole process, the establishment, because of course there is a process, and in that process there seems to be a lot of weak links, and that is disconcerting for the public because we have we've got full prisons, so of course people get released early. We've got a Crown Prosecution Service that takes ages. In this case, this person was seen quickly, put on trial, given his sentence, but even there, somewhere in that, he is now on the loose. So what happens now? Presumably everyone's looking for him.
Well, the police pick the pieces up. The police are not any more enamoured by this sort of thing happening than the public are, because it's them that then have to start looking for the person and diverting resources from other things that they could maybe be doing more meaningfully as their day job. And so the police will be assessing the risk, depending on the exact details of the background of this individual and the offences, assessing the risk and putting in place any protection necessary for victims or potential victims that can be identified. But otherwise, they'll just be following up every possible lead they can lay their hands on in terms of places he may go or places where he may seek support. Something like this, unlike a prison break, where there's obviously a lot of planning gone into it and people will have given some thought to what happens next after I go over the wall or whatever, this sort of thing can be pretty spontaneous. He might have known nothing about it until a prison officer went, "Here's your hat and coat, off you go, you're released." And he's sitting there going, that's a bit of a surprise. So he might not have put in place any arrangements to support himself. So, people tend to return to their old haunts or stick out like a sore thumb trying to find some new ones. So the police will be aware of those sorts of things and will be keeping an eye on every possible lead they've got around relatives, friends, associates.
All right, Peter Kirkham, thank you very much. All right, let's get back to our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. He sort of seemed to think that it's not really the police's fault, it's a different department, blah, blah, blah.
Yes, listen, I should say, we've just seen a bit of video that's been given to us on social media now that appears to show Hadush Kabatu out and about in the community. We're just working to see if we can blur out some of the innocent members of the public on that video, and if we do that, we'll be able to bring that to you. But I've seen the video, and I can confirm, having sat just 5 feet away from him when he was sentenced on the 23rd of September, to me, that very much looks like Hadush Kabatu. And to compound my belief that it's him, he's wearing what we often see anybody that's in prison or appears in court wearing, which is a grey prison-issue tracksuit. They're quite distinctive because it's just a plain grey tracksuit. Not very flattering. And also carrying a clear plastic bag that looks to be full of belongings. So in the video, he's chatting to 2 or 3 people on the street, and he appears to be getting some kind of directions from them before he then sort of wanders off and looks to be shaking his head as he wanders off.
But is he to blame for this, though? Because perhaps, to be honest, if you don't really know and you've just been given the thing, you go, oh, OK, and then you walk off, they've released him. They released him. So they can't then punish him for running away, because maybe he didn't really know. I mean, I'm not justifying him, he's awful. Yeah. But, whose fault? Will he be given a punishment for that?
Well, I think, this is a man that was jailed for a year. Because of time served, he was potentially going to be released at around Christmas time. So he knew he wasn't up for release. I'm sure he will have been told, and especially by his legal team, that he was going off to an immigration centre. So being released into the street, you have to be pretty thick not to realise you've been released in error. And if you don't immediately then go back and say, I think I've been released in error, then yes, you are part and parcel of a conspiracy to escape.
All right, Mark White, thank you very much. I mean, absolutely ridiculously shocking, embarrassingly weak system that we have here. I don't know what to say. That's all from me, but don't worry, because we'll continue with this, because up next it's Jubes & Co., the fiercest debate show in town.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Severe congestion affects the M4 eastbound at junction 33 near Capel Lanilturn. The M62 westbound in Salford is partly closed between junctions 12 and 11. A collision on the M1 northbound in Rotherham causes delays. In Staffordshire, the M6 southbound has 2 lanes closed between junctions 15 and 14 due to an accident. Norfolk's A11 northbound has issues. Hampshire's M3 westbound, between junctions 6 and 7, faces 40-minute delays due to a road collision. And on the trains, services are disrupted between Milton Keynes Central and Northampton. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's the final week to see how you can become our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps four, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to Jubes & Co with me, Dawn Neeson. Joining me until 7 o'clock, my panel, Campaign Director for Restore Britain, Charlie Downs, and Labour Councillor, Sebastian Salek. Now, we are obviously covering on this breaking live news story for you the manhunt that continues for the missing Epping sex assault chap who's on the run as we speak now. A major manhunt is underway to find him, and we don't know where he is at the moment, but he was accidentally released from jail. Can you believe this? I can't believe I'm reading it out. You couldn't make this one up. Hadush Kabatu was meant to be sent to an immigration detention centre to be deported, but was mistakenly freed. GB News reporter Will Godley has all the latest details for us. Will.
Well, Dawn, yeah, I can tell you that in the last few moments we understand that a prison service officer has been removed from duties after Hadush Kabatu was supposed to be taken to Home Office Immigration Centre, we understand it, but was accidentally released from HMP Chelmsford. And earlier on today, a very alarmed member of the public in Chelmsford filmed a video of someone she believed to be Hadush Kabatu. Now, we haven't been able to verify that it is him. We've spoken to the MOJ and we're waiting to hear. But she was very, very concerned that the man she was filming was him. I'll show you this video now and we'll speak about it after. Well, you can see there a man in grey tracksuits with belongings seeming to be in a clear bin bag talking to people who we've blurred out there. That video was filmed at 12:07 today on an iPhone on Chelmsford High Street outside Shoe and Pret a Manger. The woman who I was speaking to who's filmed this video is a Chelmsford resident, a mum of 2 teenage girls, incredibly concerned at the prospect that a man who has been sent to prison after sexually assaulting a teenage girl could be out on the streets. She followed him for a little while as he left his friends, who she says he was chatting to for a little while, or we don't know if they're friends, but people in the streets that he was, this man she believed to be Hadush Kabatu, who he was chatting to. She followed him, the man who she believed to be Kabatu, further into Chelmsford, down a street towards the cathedral, and she left him there fearing for her own safety. But if he was to carry on that road, we don't know if he did, he would eventually ended up at Chelmsford train station. Now, all of these areas are very, very close to the prison where Kibatu was serving his sentence. Had been there for 4 weeks. The shoe on Chelmsford High Street was a 0.6-mile walk, about 20-minute walk from the prison, when she saw a man she believed to be Hadush Kibatu at 12:07, and then that would be a 0.3-mile walk to the train station, where she says the man in the video was heading there. She doesn't know what they were discussing in that video, but of course very, very worried about her own daughters. She was telling me in the last few minutes that this man, Hadush Kibatu, has accidentally been released from prison. Well, we've seen the metadata of this video. We know it was filmed today in Chelmsford at 12:07. We've spoken to the lady who's filmed it, and she's given it to us to show to GB News viewers. She's now going to speak to the police as she understands that he has been accidentally released from prison, and we've given it to the MOJ as well, who will be using it for their own investigations, and as we seek to verify whether or not this is indeed Hadush Kibatu, who was accidentally released from prison today when he was due to be handed over to the Home Office to go to an immigration removal centre. And in the last few moments, we've heard from the prison service. A spokesperson has told us, "We are urgently working with police to return an offender to custody following a release in error at HMP Chelmsford. Public protection is our top priority, and we've launched an investigation into this incident." Dawn.
It is quite incredible. I mean, for those who need their memory refreshing, Hadush Kibatu is 41 years old. He's an Ethiopian national. He was a resident at the Bell Hotel in Epping, where he had only been for a couple of weeks after coming into the country illegally, where he sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl and an older woman. He was sentenced to 12 months in prison for this assault and was jailed on the 23rd of September. We believe he was being transferred from Chelmsford Prison this morning on the way to a detention centre where he was due to be deported. It's his behaviour at the time when he was arrested and jailed in Epping. The judge said his behaviour was disgusting and sickening. He said he didn't realise that he was doing anything wrong. He thought it was perfectly acceptable to sexually assault a 14-year-old girl who was still wearing her school uniform. OK, Will, thank you very much. OK, now I think let's speak to GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White. Mark, you've been following the story very closely. Can you bring us any updates on it?
Well, I think the important thing to say, having been at Chelmsford Magistrates Court for the sentencing of Hadush Kibatu on the 23rd of September, I was sat just 5 feet away from him, and to me there is no doubt in my mind that the video that we just played is Hadush Kibatu. What also cements the belief in my mind that it is him is the fact that he is wearing a prison-issue grey tracksuit. That is what they wear in prison, but of course when they're released from prison to go to court and back, we see them all the time. They are just plain grey tracksuits, not at all stylish, but also of course carrying belongings in a clear bag. Again, that's what happens when you're released from prison. They give you your belongings in a clear plastic bag, and there you go. Now, as Will Godley was saying there, the direction that he walked off in was towards the local rail station in Chelmsford. Now, that will be of concern, of course, to the authorities if that is the case. You know, I was speaking just a short time ago with Nana Akua about, you know, whether he's really in the wrong here if he's been accidentally released. But yes, you're absolutely in the wrong if some 6 hours or more after you were accidentally released, you don't realise that you were accidentally released and immediately turn yourself into the authorities. He's had a significant amount of time to do that and hasn't done that. Now, in terms of what the authorities will be doing, they're looking for this man as a matter of urgency, because listening to the magistrate in court as he sentenced Hadush Kobatu, he was in no doubt that this was a man who posed a danger to both women and girls, a repeat offender who just 8 days after arriving in the UK sexually assaulted this girl. And in fact, earlier than that, he was already making sort of overtures to young girls in that area of Epping. And of course, one of the people that he sexually assaulted was a woman, a grown woman, who just tried to help him because he said he wanted some assistance in filling out a CV and writing a CV for himself. She sat down, spoke to him in an open area near some shops, and he put his hand on her thigh between her legs, and immediately she was shocked. She brushed his hand away, but she still wanted to help him, and went into a local shop, got a piece of paper and a pen. When she came out, he was then sexually assaulting this 14-year-old girl. And it was at that point, you're looking at the images there of the police arrest video, that she dialed 999 and demanded that the police get there as quickly as possible to deal with what was obviously a sexual predator. And there was lots, as I say, that came out from the prosecution in setting out what the severity of the sentence should be, that pointed to this man's predatory behaviour, and that pattern of offending would only accelerate, would only worsen until a much more serious sexual offence was committed. Now, the judge jailed him for 12 months. It was the maximum that a magistrate could hand down, other than handing it up to the Crown Court. But he did that with the sure and certain knowledge that at 12 months, Dawn, you have this automatic process that kicks in where the Home Office can then begin the process of deporting you from the country. And that's what was underway when Hadush Kobatu was accidentally released. He was being taken from the prison to an immigration removal centre, but somehow was accidentally released. Some mistake that has clearly happened. We are now told, confirmed by sources to me, that a prison officer has been removed from active duties while they investigate what is described, they say, as a rare occurrence. But this is deeply, deeply embarrassing. It's beyond embarrassing. It's highly, highly concerning to people in that area of Essex, of course, who for many months now have been voicing their real serious concern about this man and also about the wider threat from these asylum hotels.
Mark White, thank you very much for now.